Chapter 4. 6 months. 1. Subaru and Rem's moving finished quickly, because all they did was move the undamaged belongings to the next room. The tenement house room assignment went smoothly. The room they had originally lived in was left to Tia, while Subaru, Rem, and Hallible lived to the left and right of it. They did propose the idea of leaving a room in between each of them, but Tia, suggesting to keep the rooms apart. So you're saying that you do feel guilty? Then, it had to be rejected because of Tia loudly suspecting them. After several nights, Tia would end up regretting the room assignments with a red face, since voices could clearly be heard in adjoining rooms, probably because of the thickness of the walls. In any case, the moving finished without any problems, and so began the life of the strange neighbors in the tenement house. Tia, I gotta make money. Hallible, that's the first thing you're gonna say in the morning. Gathered at the breakfast table, Tia suddenly started the conversation like that, holding a chopstick in each hand. The round tea table used as a dining table split into two last night, so they hurriedly forced the broken boards together for temporary use. Two outsiders were sitting at the dining table for some reason. They were Tia and Hallible. They were shamelessly enjoying meals together, even asking for seconds, taking advantage of Rem's kindness. Not to mention, Tia's was so bad at using chopsticks that her whole face was covered with grains of rice. Tia, listen here. I may be allowed to live in that shabby room, but I don't want to if it's a mess like that. Screw that. Which is why I'm asking you to hurry up and fix it. And then, Hallible, maybe if Sue and Rem were paying for it, but there's no way I'll lend you money. Borrowing and lending money doesn't work without trust. Like, you've already ruined any trust you had. How shameless can you be? Tia, hey, come on. What do you think? Subaru, your face caught my attention so much that I couldn't join in on the conversation, riceling. Her rice makeup was too next level for Subaru to understand it. His point makes Tia's face turn sour. While she carefully picked the rice off of it, Rem nodded at her as she said, I see. Rem, so Miss Tia is looking for a job. Well, that's not our problem. Tia, you know, lately I feel like your words have been hitting me where it hurts. Rem, Subaru's just one step away from being a regular employee. He's already far ahead of you. There's no recovering from this. Subaru won. Tia, forget about that male's victory. I just want to know what exactly you're trying to say. Rem roots for Subaru, breathing heavily as she laughed tee-hee, and Tia urged her to go on as she raised her hand. Seeing that, Rem clears her throat, and then, Rem, I think you should use an employment agency. I highly recommend finding a job you're good at and earning money. Subaru, so your best bet is to get referred at Klane's employment agency. By the way, are you even good at anything? And do you have any qualifications? Tia, my specialty is killing. I don't feel like killing right now, though. Subaru, there's no way you'd find a killing job with that unmotivated attitude. Tia folds her arms, and she threw out her busty chest, rice still stuck on her face. Still, if they take her words into account and recommend murder, they very well might end up quickly regretting last night's decision. Subaru gives Hallible, who knew the town very well, a quick glance, seeking help. Hallible, let's see, requests for murder aren't posted on the employment agency bulletin board. Tia, makes sense. Hallible, stuff like that are hidden in the back. If he knows you, that is. Subaru, it's the dark side of the town I never knew about. Perhaps even employment agencies recognized by towns have shady jobs. Subaru felt down, as he felt like he just found out about the good-natured, lizard-faced man's complicated circumstances. Hallible, no, it's a joke, just a joke. You shouldn't take it seriously. Subaru, a joke. Oh, I see, thank goodness. You really had me worried there. I don't know how I'd face that cute apron-wearing lizard from then on. Hallible, Klane doesn't accept those kind of jobs. Unauthorized employment agencies handle that sort of stuff. Subaru, from now on, I will never use anything other than authorized employment agencies. Rem, actually, if you get fully approved this time, Mr. Klane will never have to help you again, so make that your goal. Subaru, oh, that's right. It's pointed out that his goal was being lowered by trying to keep things as they are, making him have a realization. While feeling thankful for Rem having his back, Subaru felt more motivated to work at the palace. Yesterday, the staff also cared about him. Starting today, he'd go full throttle. Subaru. My motivation has went up now that I think about it that way. All right, let's go to work. Rem. Yeah. Tia, no, what about me? Tia erupted when Subaru and Rem got excited and stood up hand in hand. With her hands, she threw the food left on her plate into her mouth, chewed on it and swallowed, and then Tia. Introduce me to this guy I don't really know, and then I'll do a killing job. Subaru. You idiot. Who in their right mind would let you do a night job like that? Mr. Hal, tell her. Halable. I kinda do classic night work as a shinobi. That said, I'm not too sure about letting you kill, so how about you try something else? Like suppression requests or bounty hunting. Halable cracks his knuckles, and he gave those conditions, causing Tia to tilt her head. However, the adventurous ring to it made Subaru's eyes widen. Subaru. Bounty hunting. Suppression requests. That sounds awesome. Rem. What kind of work are they exactly? Can Miss Tia do them? Rem had a pretty realistic reaction in comparison to Subaru, who thought adventurously. Rem sees Tia's side of the dinner table, which she got extremely dirty. She sees that she lacks things like the ability to do delicate tasks and etiquette, and hoped that the job wouldn't require those sort of skills. Halable. The main jobs are catching evildoers popping up on wanted posters, sometimes beating them up. And then there's also the evil witch beasts that show up every now and then. Tia. Basically, hunting. My specialty. It was like Tia's eyes shined for a moment. And then, when she energetically stood up from the tea table, she grabbed Halible's neck as he tried to have a quick smoke, having finished his meal. Halibel. Tia. Now show me the way. I have no idea what to hunt after all. Halibel. Wait, Sue, Rem. Subaru, see ya. Halibel. Oh, come on. Tia drags away Halibel, and resistance was futile. Subaru had no reason to stop her, and he wasn't so sure that he could stop her anyway. With the noisy neighbors leaving, only the married couple was left in the room. Rem. Is it really okay for us to let Mr. Halibel take care of Miss Tia? Subaru. Mr. Hal shouldn't have any problems. If Tia were to try and do something harmful, only Mr. Hal would be able to stop her, so it makes sense to have him near enough to keep an eye on her. Rem. I see, that does make sense. Plus, moss might grow on Mr. Halibel's body if he doesn't work like everyone else every now and then. Rem encouraged Halibel, understanding and moderate sharpness showing in her words. Letting Halibel handle Tia was actually already an established thing. Halibel even gave his consent. That last interaction was just like something a play would regularly have, nothing more. Fortunately, Halibel didn't have to stay with Subaru and Rem anymore to protect them, since he now had a good grasp of the tendencies of Tia, the attacker. Hence, why he didn't need to worry about working while being in constant fear of when she'd attack. Subaru, now I just have to worry about if I'll become a full-time worker in Rem's stomach. Rem, as of right now, I believe that I could work without any difficulties. Subaru, it's going to be our first child. I don't want anything to catch us off guard. Although, from the little knowledge I have, I remember that most childbirths take 9 months and 10 days. Going off of Subaru's knowledge, it would take roughly 10 months to go from pregnancy to childbirth. However, there was no way to find how long she has been pregnant. He guessed about 3 months since her stomach didn't look all that different. Besides, there was another problem. Rem is an Oni, a demi-human species, although they didn't look like it. Could a normal human's knowledge really be applied to having a feel for when she was pregnant and when she'd give birth? On top of that, there was also an irregular condition where it was a mix between a human and an Oni. Subaru, is there anything else we can do on top of keeping in touch and seeing that healing doctor? Rem, I'm sorry, I don't know much about this stuff. In a time like this, Subaru. Rem, in a time like this, maybe we should find an experienced midwife. Rem hesitates, unable to find the right words, and then she says that. The reaction was unnatural. However, Subaru did not say anything about it and just nodded as he said, yeah. He knew what Rem was going to say. There was an unspoken agreement between Subaru and Rem to not never touch on that subject. Subaru says, all right, to pull himself together and put that matter behind as he continued, Subaru. Let's just live like we always have until your stomach starts changing. However, if you aren't feeling well, tell me right away, even if it's just a slight fever. I'll get mad this time if you don't tell me. Rem, understood. But if you do get mad, what would you do? Subaru. You know, I'll lock you in the room and I'll watch over you the whole time. Meanwhile, I'll borrow from Mr. Hal for our living expenses, making us go into deep debt. It'll be tough times once the child is born. Rem, that's so terrifying. I won't let your idea become reality. Rem giggles, bringing herself close to Subaru since the fear was too much for her to handle. He embraces Rem's slender body, and they hug each other in silence for a while. As they did that, it naturally got closer to the time when they both have to leave for work. Subaru. All right, I'm gonna give it my all today, too. I'll be praying for nothing to happen to Mr. Hal and Tia as well. Rem. Praying, yeah. They smile at each other one last time, and then they left their new room at the tenement house. In the evening, they would find out that their praying was off in a good way. Halable. This is actually a really good catch. Even I rarely come across them. These were the thoughts of Halable, who came with Tia on her first job. Tia came back with a bag filled with her reward, and she proudly put her feet on the table, but Rem scolded her for her actions, disheartening her. Food was set on the dining table, knocking the closed reward bag onto the floor. Subaru had doubts about the report, seeing Rem lecturing Tia on the side. Halable, no, I mean I see why you'd be suspicious. Subaru, after seeing that, yeah, well, as long as it went well, it's a good thing. So what is this good catch? Tell me about it in detail. Halable, so at first, as decided, we chose a job on a wanted poster to catch a petty thief. But then that suddenly fell to our feet, obviously. I couldn't just look. That became the reward we were dealing with, and then in the end it became a brutal arrest. Tia, who was brought to Klane's employment agency, experimentally participated in bounty hunting with Halible's referral. Basically, they chose a random wanted poster on the store bulletin board, correctly tracked down the wanted criminal, and cornered him. Halibel. It was a petty crook committing theft at stores. But when we tried to break into his room, there were magic stones in it all over, causing a commotion. He ended up using them to try and suicide. Subaru. So he was a really dangerous terrorist. Halibel. Tia socked him and tied him up. And then he said that he knew even more dangerous smugglers and that some of them are in town. We somehow got him to tell us their location, and we rounded up all of the idiots hiding in town, foiling their plan to destroy the city. Subaru. That's the feature film-like incident that happened on your end today. Subaru could only be amazed by the major event that happened behind the scenes and could have destroyed the town. Subaru was completely unaware of the incident. He was even asking his female coworkers at his workplace what to do when the baby is born, and they laughed at him as they replied, "It's too early for that stuff." Subaru. Then, this heroine that saved the town got scolded because she put her feet on that dining table, and she's all quiet now. Halibel. Indeed, she is. Subaru and Halibel nod deeply. In their eyes, they saw Rem hesitantly explaining the importance of manners to Tia, who was completely afraid. Rem did not scold people by yelling. The way she did it spoke to the heart, and so it was rather painful emotionally. Rem. And so manners are important. That also goes for showing respect to the people you eat with and the food you are served. Do you understand? Tia. Yes, I understand. I understand. Rem. Miss Tia. Tia. I told you, I understand. Perhaps this was a result of knowing that she was going to be a mother. Rem had no mercy when it came to being commanding, even with someone who was rather stronger than her. Overwhelmed by her force, Tia obediently sits down in front of the dining table girl stylione. Faced with Tia having downcasted eyes, Rem lets out a sigh, and then she said, Rem, Miss Tia, take this. Tia, what's this for? Rem, I'm giving it since it seems you have trouble eating with chopsticks. Please use it with care. A wooden spoon. That's what gets handed to Tia at the dining table, and Rem's smile makes her eyes widen. Then after she closed her eyes tight, she said, Tia, that's kinda smart. All right, I'll use it. As she said that, she accepted the present spoon. She had a grin on her face. Tia, it's not feeding, but something like it. Halibel. So, seeing her act like that, I guess Sue wins the bet for now. Subaru. If the bet is that Tia won't cause any problems, then Rem is the one who won. And she still is. Halibel. Ah, that's true. When Subaru sneered, Hannibal replied by suddenly smiling. Seeing those two men act like that, Rem, who finished her lecture, clapped her hands. Rem, now let's eat. Miss Tia had her first job today, and even Mr. Hallible worked too, so the food should be delicious. Hallible, great, but is there some for me? Everyone follows Rem's instruction and sits at the dining table. Subaru was curious as to why there was food for Tia and Hallible like it was the most natural thing. But the two of them had expectant looks on their faces, so he didn't say anything. They expressed their thanks in unison. Tia did it reluctantly, and he stopped caring about his concern once they started eating. Tonight's menu was a fish-focused Japanese-style dish arranged by Rem. They dig in. They were greatly pleased. Tia especially was digging in. Tia, I'm impressed, Rem. The light texture of the fish and the taste changes with the slightly burnt part. I can't stop eating. Rem, thank you very much, Miss Tia. There's actually white vegetable sauce in it. Tia, no way, T. The flavor is this refreshing. It seemed like Rem was happily feeding Tia, who kept overreacting. It looked like a rare animal enjoying food that didn't exist in its habitat. It also seemed like the bloodlust disappeared and that she completely opened up to them, which made Subaru feel relieved. Hallible, gotta bathe after eating. We made a lot with the reward, so you wouldn't get angry if I drank after taking a bath, would you? Rem, as long as you don't make Subaru and I drink, I have no complaints. Don't make Miss Tia do it either. Subaru, you probably shouldn't for safety's sake. The three of them face each other, and they take a glance at Tia. She was focusing on picking the leftover grains of rice in her rice bowl, paying no attention to their conversation. They were afraid of having no idea what she would do if they got drunk. Unfortunately, Hallible would have to drink alone tonight. Furthermore, Subaru prefers to not drink, as he didn't really like alcohol, and Rem has an extremely low alcohol tolerance for an Oni. Thus they have never accepted Hallible's invitations. Hallible, damn, I'm so sad. In the end, nobody joined in to drink with Hallible, and he shook his whiskers in disappointment. Although his murmuring wasn't supposed to be a cue or anything, Tia, having finished destroying her grains of rice, tilted her head as she said, "What?" As she continued, Tia, "What is this about? I'm stuffed and I want to go to bed right about now." Rem, you can't. You worked the whole day, so you're probably covered in sweat. So you have to take a bath. Tia, if it's like bathing in a river or a lake, then fine, I'll do it. Rem, no, let's go to the bathhouse. Rem leans forward, and she enthusiastically tried to convince Tia, who was uninterested. Her energy makes Tia's eyes widen, and she asks Subaru and Hallible for help. However, unfortunately, Subaru, the bathhouse is pretty nice. Hallible, sure is. Nobody was on Tia's side. 3, about the bathhouses of this world. They're pretty straightforward, and are quite literally public baths. A bathtub lies in a wide space, and the water stored inside of it heats up with the use of a magic stone at the bottom of the tub. The structure of the bathhouse was extremely simple, except for the fact that it used special tools. At first, Subaru was surprised by bathhouses with how common they were. Subaru, well, in manga I've read that in ancient times there were already baths during Roman period. The existence of bathhouses isn't all that strange in comparison to that. Plus, even ninjas finally showed up in Kararagi Wafu culture. He definitely wouldn't be surprised by stuff like bathtubs and daikon radish. Subaru, I'm gonna act very surprised if I find a Japanese mascot. Hallible, what have you been mumbling about? Then, a ninja soaking right next to him in the bathtub spoke. The ninja soaked in the bath all the way up to his head. His whole body was wet, including his fearless face, and his hair was sticking together. Now he truly was a wet dog. With just his body and appearance, he could no longer find any similarities to when he was dry. Subaru, so I've been thinking about different world people. It's a pain living in a combined culture with all the differences races have. Once you get out of a bath, sometimes you'll have someone's fallen hair all over your body. Hallible, you just have to pour hot water on yourself before you get out. Or do you have some sort of interesting idea? Subaru, let's see. Use the drain around the edge of the bathtub, control the flow of the hot water with a magic stone, and let the water run. Set a net for to catch the fallen hair that'll get inside, and the hot water that passes through will come back. Halabel. Can you draw a picture for that? I don't really get it. It was kind of summerish. Halabel didn't really care too much about his pool-based proposal as he looked up in the bathtub contentedly moaning. Oh, yes. However, he didn't blame him. Everyone reverts to a naked beast once they soak in warm bath, which has nothing to do with the worries Subaru had about differences between races. Right now, he just wanted to soak in the motherly warmth of this bathtub. Subaru. Which is why I'd like to ignore the voice I can hear over the wall. Tia. Hey, isn't this cool? Wow, oh my, I've never seen anything like it. Halabel. Oh, Sue, that's probably not possible. See, look over there. Subaru was covering his face with a towel, but he heard a familiar high-pitched screech and was tapped on the shoulder by Halabel from the side. He couldn't ignore it anymore. He takes off the towel, and once he looked in the direction Halabel pointed at, he saw a tall wall in bathhouses. The men's bath and the women's bath are separated. There was a wall separating them. Oftentimes, for some reason, the baths are connected at the top of the wall, so Tia. Oh, there they are. Hey, you too. Isn't it amazing how the bath feels so nice? Subaru. Tia had crept up to the small hole at the top of ceiling and the wall, seeming to have climbed up the wall. She peeked through the hole, and their eyes met. She was nude, waving her hand innocently, but fortunately the wall was hiding the parts below her chest. But still, her wet hair and the curves of her exposed nape and shoulders were quite charming, and to tell the truth, it was alluring. Also, the people at the men's bath were startled when they were suddenly peeked at by a heavenly beautiful woman. Stranger, Kaya! They weren't really shrill shrieks, but rough shrieks that resounded throughout the men's bath. There were people who fell over, people who ran into the dressing room, and people who dove into the bath. Tia looks down at everyone running in confusion, and it makes her blink in surprise. Tia, don't really get what's going on, but it does feel nice seeing males running away. Subaru. Like anyone cares about your fetishes. Get the hell down from there. Tia. Oh, but I have such a nice view from here. Oh yeah. Are there any differences between this bath and that bath? Can I check it out for a bit? Subaru. You idiot. Without any hesitation, Tia climbs over the wall and tries to join the men's bath. He tried to stop her immediately, but unfortunately he could not reach the top of the wall from the bathtub. Something happened immediately after Subaru gave up and decided to overlook Tia's reckless actions, when the people in the men's bath held their breath. There was a high-pitched, tremendous scraping sound, and then Tia was no longer seen on the top of the wall. However, she didn't climb over. She had disappeared into the women's bath, and then immediately after that, there were successive sounds of large bodies falling onto the water, causing grand explosions in the bathhouse. Rem. Everyone, my dearest apologies for all the trouble. Please continue to enjoy the bath. Once the sound of the water completely disappeared, those polite words were forwarded from the women's bath to the men's bath. It was obvious who said those words. Subaru. Rem, Subaru, I'm sorry. I was in the middle of washing my body at the washing place, but it's fine now. Subaru. Oh, good call. But anyways, it seems Rem had fixed the situation over at the women's bath. He felt like praising his wife for her clutch assistance, but there was something else on his mind. That was Subaru. That sounded like the nostalgic sound of chains, huh, Rem? It's for self-protection. Subaru. But this is a bathhouse and Rem should be naked. Rem. It's for self-protection. Her stubborn replies denied Subaru from any further questioning. Plus, since Subaru wasn't at the scene over the wall, he had no way of confirming it. The case was closed. It was unsolved. Halabel. Rem sure is impressive. Then, Halabel, who floated in the bathtub with his tray and sake and acted unconcerned the whole time, let out those carefree thoughts, and he was licking the sake with his red face covered by his hair once that he finished. After getting out of the bath, they went to the bathhouse entrance to meet up with the two people who were at the women's bath. The bathhouse entrance had a space that was like a lounge, and apart from the dressing room, visitors could relax as much as they wanted there. Most of the time it'd become a place where old people meet, and they'd wait patiently for visitors who entered the bath to get out. There was one dead, tired woman slovenly lying down on a couch in that space, Rem. Apparently it was her first time at a bathhouse, so she went too nuts and felt dizzy after staying in too long. Subaru. So that's why she using my special seat. I can tell that it's her first time, though. As he grumbled, Subaru saw Tia, who was lying down while moaning ooh and ah, receiving a lap pillow from Rem. Her white skin glowed so much that at first glance you could tell she had a head rush. Had she been standing up with a serious face right now, she would have certainly looked charming. Although by lying down in a sad, exposed state, men lose interest in hitting on her. Subaru. Wow, you even borrowed a fan for this girl. Rem. If she falls over on the way back, she'd get covered in mud after all that cleaning. Subaru. Sounds better than trying to maintain her beauty, all right. Hand me the fan. I'll fan her. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Tia. Ooh, that feels so good. Subaru takes the fan from Rem, who had been gently fanning her, and then he creates a storm. Bathing in that storm, Tia seemed to be enjoying it, although she was still groggy. However, soon enough, his arms couldn't take it anymore. His fanning slows down and stops. Tia. Come on, can't you fan me more? Subaru. Don't be so spoiled. Besides, Rem's lap is mine, and the fan is borrowed. Who do you think you are, a princess? Tia. So annoying. Tia grimaces at Subaru's point, and he takes the fan away from him. After that, while Tia started fanning herself, Subaru looked at the wrist of her right hand. Subaru. What's that? A friendship bracelet. Tia. Don't know what a friendship bracelet is, but Hal gave it to me. He told me to put it on. Is it a charm? Rem. A charm, huh? It's a bit surprising to see Mr. Hallible give Miss Tia a gift. Subaru. Well, it can't be Mr. Hal trying to put the moves on Tia, she pouted, and she looked beautiful fanning herself quickly, but she also looked childish. Hallible's true motive was unknown, and there may be no particular reason behind his actions, but all he had to investigate and cool down. He was warmed up now, so he was going to finish his business and leave before he caught a cold. Subaru, all right, it's time for the last bathhouse ritual. You're coming too. Tia, ritual? Rem, yes, a ritual. If you don't do it, it'd defeat the purpose of coming to the bathhouse. Subaru and Rem, the married couple, confidently replied to Tia, who gave a dubious look. The firmness of their tones confused Tia, further increasing the surprise of the one who showed up afterwards. The one who came was Hallible. However, the hair on his dry head was fluffy, and he looked like a completely different person, despite them being familiar with how he looked. Tia, you're the mutt, right? Hallible. Yeah, it's me. Also here, take this. Gotta drink it before it warms up or else it'd be a waste. Tia. Wait a second, what's this? A beast's milk. Hallible. Watch how you put it. What Hallible brought over in his hands was a white liquid in a bottle. What Tia said wasn't wrong, but put in a more tasteful way it would be. Subaru. It's milk for when you get out of the bath. It's a universal ritual. One could call it all worlds do it, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration. Or at least, if the stylistic beauty was common between the two worlds Subaru knew, you could call it a ceremony passed across worlds. Strictly speaking, this wasn't cow milk, and it wasn't fruit milk either, which would have been ideal. However, there at least was a skill to keep bottled milk cold, and it would be best not to expect more than that. Subaru. Uncork the bottle, put your hand on your hip, then drink up. While Subaru enthusiastically explained the steps, he performed the ritual. Cold milk goes through his throat, flowing into his warm stomach. That refreshing feeling, the strong counter for his body that warmed up inside from the bath, that is the best part of bathhouses. Rem. Shouting cutely, Rem also drinks milk like Subaru. Then so did Hallible, along with other people who got out of the bath. Tia. Ahaha, why your face, a mustache, it's making a mustache. Subaru. It's part of what makes this beautiful. Tia. Lame, so lame. You look like an idiot. Developing a white mustache after getting milk around your mouth was like proof that the ritual was a success. Incidentally, it was hard for Hallible to get milk around his mouth because of its structure. After Rem sneakily finished drinking, she looked back and gently wiped her mouth without letting anyone see. Dubiously gazing at the three of them, Tia uncorks the bottle with a suspicious look. Then, after she took a light sniff of the smell, she put her hand on her hip and she drank Tia. It's so good. Then, a white mustache developed around her mouth, and she said that as her eyes shined. The four of them were walking back in their yukatas as the refreshing night wind blew. Tia, bathhouses aren't as bad as I thought. Oh, just so you know, that's just because I was surprised. Halabel, it's not like I'm listening anyway. It was Tia, who walked with light steps, and Halabel going home. Tia was humming happily, perhaps because she had enjoyed her experience at the bathhouse a lot. Although she was off-key and it sounded like there was no melody, it was the same thing Subaru had heard just yesterday. Since she was singing the same thing, it didn't seem like she was singing randomly. Halabel, what song is that? Tia, a nameless song, if I had to name it. Tia puts her finger on her lip, and she went into deep thought for a moment. And then Tia, it'd be the Die song. Subaru, pick a better name. The words were just too dangerous, so Subaru reflexively buted in from the back. That makes Tia irritatedly say, what's wrong with it? As she clicked her tongue. Rem, Subaru's right. It's such a lovely song after all. Tia, this again, it's not like you'd ever going to disagree with your male partner anyway, Rem. Rem, yes, that's right. I pretty much agree with everything Subaru says. Sometimes I do disagree, though. Tia, hey, so I had this realization. I don't think I like Rem's bossiness. Overwhelmed by something that was neither stress nor praise, Tia runs away with her head between her hands. Rem was the one who took over the humming for Tia. Having heard it once, Rem somehow starts humming the same song. Tia, not quite. That's not it, ha 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 ha. Rem, well, I didn't catch it very well. Miss Tia, please let me hear it again. Tia, you want to hear it that badly? Really? Well, I guess I have no choice. Pleased with Rem, who gave a low bow, Tia starts to hum the song once again. Had they not known that it was the Die song, it would just sound like an enchanting song with a nice voice. Subaru and Rem naturally start to speak less. Halabel also walked the street without saying anything. There was only Tia's humming in the quiet street at night. Stars in the sky, and below it, the light of the paper lanterns dimly lighting the street red. Considering only that, it looked very mystical, like a moment in a dream. Rem. Subaru. Yeah. Because he was immersed in the atmosphere, his response to Rem was a little late. Rem smiles slightly, understanding how Subaru felt, and her face turned red as she said, Rem. I was just thinking, Subaru. About what? Rem, if only this moment could last longer for our child to see it. Rem says that with a gentle smile, and she rubbed her stomach softly. Her gesture and words make Subaru feel really embarrassed, and he couldn't put his feelings into words. Subaru. He simply gently held onto Rem's free hand, combining their warmth, and they went home. And that's how the night went. 5. The days went on slowly, without any time to stop, like water flowing. They were busy, noisy days. Ever since the night Subaru met with the strange neighbors at the tenement house, the days were eventful in a good way, and hardly any of the things he was anxious about happened. It somehow became a habit for Tia and Halabel to accompany Subaru and Rem at the dining table in the morning, and they'd spend time together until work while talking about their plans for the day. Tia, they need me or else crooks will be on the loose. Even Klain said so. Rem, Tia is as reliable as expected. I'm very thankful. Looks like you might get more food. Tia, this is where you give me more. You don't mean might get more. You will give me more. Tia decided on doing bounty hunting as her job after getting a taste of success with her first job. It seemed that it really was Tia's calling, and from what they'd been told, her arrest rate was quite something. Jobs handled at Klain's employment agency are recognized by the town. Because of this, a lot of the jobs are highly beneficial to Bonin Town. Inevitably, Tia's efforts were making the town more safe. Halabel, put yourself in my shoes as someone who has to go with her. I haven't been able to take a lovely nap with the sun out for so many days. My internal body clock is going to get messed up at this rate. Rem, isn't this a sign that you're getting closer to being a proper citizen? Subaru, Rem's right. Suck it up and follow Tia around. I'm sure you'll even lose some of that stomach fat of yours that you've been worrying about. As a married couple, Subaru and Rem soothe Halabel, who took a barrage of criticism while frowning. Seeing that interaction out of the corner of her eye, Tia happily drinks her miso soup as she raised her bowl and said, More please. Subaru frequently went to the Magoji Palace at noon. even after the defined period of time. He succeeded at obtaining the steady job that he'd dreamed of without any problems. This was all thanks to Riffin and the landlady recognizing Subaru's abilities, and it was the reward for living up to their expectations. However, if there was one thing that was different from what he'd expected Subaru. All right, today let's review the basics of making Yufuku Western-style clothes. Stranger. Yees, Subaru. Subaru. Good answer. However, I'm the sensei now. Call me sensei, okay? Stranger. You got it, Subaru-sensei. Subaru was shrugging his shoulders as he smiled wryly at the playful women. Subaru was officially hired at the Magoji Palace, but her was no longer just a servant. He was also acted as a teacher in a little class for lessons. The classroom was one of Magoji Palace's tatami rooms. In it, you'd mainly learn about sewing, Subaru's specialty, and a version of fashion-related Western-style clothing, stuff you'd call embroidery. Even in Kararagi, where wafu culture was popular, it was hard for it to take root, even with fashion culture from other countries coming over. In this place, someone with the knowledge and the skills becomes a teacher, and people would get the help they have always wanted with the Western-style clothes women usually wore. Most of the students were female co-workers working at the palace and bourgeoisie wives around the same age. Once in a while, there'd be young women who would study the basics and planned on doing a job related to it in the future, but these were the kind of people who came, more or less. If there had to be a name for Subaru's job, you'd call it a cultural lecturer, the parallel universe version. Riffin, I thought I told you that I have high hopes for your femininity. Subaru, well, I don't have any complaints. I don't, but this is one of those things you're into, isn't it? Riffin, what a terrible misunderstanding. I just wanted to see my beloved girls in something other than wafu clothing. I'm just trying to make that small wish come true, that's all. Subaru, for some reason you keep denying you're into cougars. Incidentally, Subaru's lessons are mostly popular, and they were talking about increasing his lessons from 3 times a week to 4 times a week. If the knowledge from Subaru's world was helpful at all, he'd like to use this cultural school as an excuse to spread it to others. At night, after Subaru's work ended at the palace, he said goodbye to the ladies and the gatekeeper, who he was familiar with, and he went to the tenement house. No, he went to Temple Elementary School to see Rem. Ever since he found out that Rem was pregnant, he always made sure to walk home with Rem. Otherwise, he wouldn't know if something happened along the way, and it'd be too late after something did happen. Subaru. A stranger might suddenly attack for an unjust reason after all. Tia. What? I don't get it. Why did you look at my face when you said that? You got a problem, Sue. In front of Temple Elementary School, which bathed in the sun, Subaru and Tia came across each other at a street, and they exchanged those words as they both grimaced. Subaru going to meet Rem was a natural thing to do as a husband. However, Tia frequently going to Temple Elementary School to meet Rem sort of ruined the married couple's time together. That alone showed that she was attached to Rem, and sometimes it'd be too much. Subaru. Also, it doesn't feel right when you call me Sue. Tia. What a pain. Hal calls you that, so there shouldn't be a problem with me calling you it too. Besides, I'm only here for Rem. You're not needed. Tia pouted and acted intimidating, and Subaru also pouted at her. This was better than her calling them by their sex by saying stuff like males, but the arrogance of her responses wasn't any different how it was in the beginning. Subaru, then I'm going to tell Rem and you'll get less food. Tia, why, you coward, you're so heartless. Still, their relationship was way more relaxed than before, just because they found a way to make her think twice. Rem. Subaru, Miss Tia, thanks for waiting. You two didn't fight, did you? Subaru. We did, Tia. Of course we did. Plus, the thing they both felt the strongest about was Rem's smiling. Given that people have time, everyone eats dinner together at night after coming home, and that even includes Halibal, who always goes off somewhere. It seemed Tia was uninterested in the reward for her bounty hunting, and ever since she earned enough money to pay off the tenement house reparations with her first job, and all of her rewards were handled by Rem. Rem, so when all your work goes well, you can treat yourself. When it doesn't, spend wisely. Tia, I can't just live large every day with all the money I have. Rem, If you do that, you'll forget to appreciate how special it is, and most importantly, you'd hurt Subaru's pride as the breadwinner. This is my prudence as a great wife. Subaru. But I'd be pleased if you don't tell anyone about this great wife's prudence. He forgave her since Rem looked cute, apologizing with her tongue stuck out. It was also for the sake of his own pride, though. Moving on, Tia worked hard to understand Rem's point as she nodded and went, "Aha." Their relationship was a strange thing. Tia was the one who looked the most mature, but inside, she was like a child. She acted like a wolf girl. Rem interacted with Tia, who didn't act how she looked, affectionately, like how a mother or an older sister would. Viewing her as a mother, this could be practice for the child. However, if Subaru viewed her as an older sister, that would be complicated and it'd make him feel like he was walking on thin ice. Halibal. Sue, what's wrong? Seeing Subaru go into deep thought, Halibal, who is the only one drinking alcohol, tilts his head and asks him a question. In response, Subaru says, "No," as he tilted his head and continued, "Subaru. It's nothing. I was just thinking about how nice it'd be if we got treated tomorrow." Rem. Mr. Halibal would really have to go out on a limb for that. After all, Mr. Halibal is the reason why we can't be treated in the first place. Tia. Really? Then I should spank him and make him work. Halibal. Don't you think you're treating me too cruelly? And so, that's how the night went the exact opposite way the morning did, with loud laughter at the dining table. After they finished eating, they went to the bathhouse. Rem watched over Tia, who acted a bit more responsibly than last time. Subaru and Halibal took their time enjoying the bath, and they went home after enjoying milk upon getting out of the bath. Tia's humming resounded throughout the street at night. Lately, it has been like a duet with Rem. In a way, listening to that added elegance to the time they spent going home, and Subaru loved it. Their precious, busy, noisy time went on slowly. 6 Tia. Woo, it takes a lot more time for a child to be born than I thought. Tia puts her arms behind the back of her head, and she said that in a carefree tone. She was on the way home from Temple Elementary School, walking with Subaru and Rem on the street during the evening, which became a daily thing. She was looking at Rem's stomach. Rem was slightly smiling in a kimono, and her stomach was big enough to recognize it from afar. Subaru. Taking a glance, it's probably been about 6 months perhaps, so like in the middle stage of pregnancy. Tia. Middle stage. Still only halfway there? Wow, animals would never take this long. Subaru. I'm not an animal, I'm a human. It takes quite a long time. Tia brings up a ridiculous example. Subaru lightly flicked her forehead, and she groaned while her forehead was being pushed. After that, she took a side glance at Rem and said, "Tia, isn't it rough having your stomach so big? It doesn't look like you could jump or hop." Rem. I can't deny that it is rough. Oftentimes it's difficult sticking out my chest, and there's no way I could jump or hop, so I'll let you do it, Miss Tia. Tia. If you insist, I'm good at jumping and hopping anyways. While Tia got carried away, full of herself, Subaru broke into a smile with that interaction. They've had a baby for about 6 months now, meaning they've been neighbors with Tia for 3 months. Although they were worried at first, it was a completely stable life now. Rem wasn't in the stable period of pregnancy, but they were able to deal with Tia's temper pretty well now. Tia, I wonder if it's going to be a male or a female. Rem, whether it's a boy or a girl, it'll probably be naughty like Subaru, but it's acting up a lot in my stomach, so I think it might be a girl. Subaru, if it's acting up, wouldn't that mean it's a boy? Rem, would it? According to Rem's self-diagnosis, apparently the baby is a girl. The way she came to that judgment made Subaru look dubious, but Rem tilted her head, and even Tia had a question mark above her because of Subaru. In this world, people might think that girls are naughty. Now that he thought about it, it did seem like a lot of the girls he got involved with in this world were active. That's when his thought was interrupted. Subaru. Well, people are delighted when their first is a girl. Back at my hometown, they say first princess, then Taratwo, meaning it's best to first have a girl and then a boy. Rem. First princess, then Taro. Subaru. Princess is the girl, while Taro is the boy. It means the first is a princess, and the second is the eldest son. If I remember correctly, it means girls don't cry as much or something like that. Kids being hard to take care of is common knowledge, and it's even been engraved in Subaru's limited knowledge. Obviously, he's never had any real experience with it. But at any rate, it's a lot of work to take care of babies when they're highly prone to crying. He was already being lectured a lot by his female co-workers at the palace. Subaru, by studying the fundamentals of childcare with our first being a girl, it will be easier to deal with the second one. It's like the wisdom of my ancestors, or more like advice they came up with from personal experience. Rem. I see. So I have to give birth to a girl first no matter what. Subaru. You don't have to put weird pressure on yourself because of what I said, even if it is a boy. With a wry smile, Subaru scratches his cheek. To Subaru's side, it was unclear how seriously Rem took him, and she said, Rem, for Subaru, do your best to be a girl. She was saying this to the child inside of her. However, he's heard that the gender of a baby is determined the moment fertilization happens, so Rem was all too late to speak to it. Subaru, if you're a boy, just come out healthy already. Cry all you want. If we learn the hard parts early, it might be easier later. Rem, oh, that's right. First it has to come out healthy, yeah, that's what's most important. Subaru, yep, that's what's most important, oh, it moved. The baby responded to Subaru, who touched Rem's stomach and talked to it while stroking it. The new life inside of Rem was already focused on turning and pushing. Subaru really felt like it was a boy, but Subaru. Maybe that's because I'm thinking too much about after it's born. Thinking rationally, he'd have the easiest time preparing if he knew whether it was a boy or a girl before it was born. The kind of choices he had for play equipment would be settled, and that go for clothes too, of course. Before he had a kid, that's actually what Subaru thought, but strangely enough, now he thinks otherwise. He felt like the things that were unknown until it's born were like blessings invoked by the baby. Tia, still about 6 months to go, that sure is a long wait. Rem, I'm sure that time will go by before we even know it. Would you prefer it be faster? Tia, I don't mind, it's just that at this rate I'll never get a clue for the light sphere. Rem, the words Tia spoke while she pouted and glared at the sunset. Hearing light sphere made Subaru's cheeks stiffen, and Rem also lost her breath for a moment. Light sphere, that's what Tia was looking for, and it was the very thing that started this life. Tia did not hesitate to say that Rem stole it for sure. However, the baby got in the way of forcing information out of her. She was let off the hook until childbirth, and they became good neighbors. However, Tia really hadn't talked about the light sphere since the first few days, and she wasn't acting suspicious of Rem. Hence, why the matter was kept in the very back of her mind. She couldn't hide her shock from Tia still remembering it and going after it. Subaru, in any case, suck it up until these 6 months are over. That was the deal. Tia, yes, I know that. 6 months, eh? Strictly speaking, a pregnancy period is about 10 months. If this is the 6th month, then there has to be 4 months left. Subaru still not pointing out that she was off by 2 months showed how he hoped to postpone that moment. It was not the same as when they had a terrible meeting. Tia was now an irreplaceable friend. Tia, if Rem gets pregnant again right after you're born, I'm going to be very troubled. Tia talked to Rem. No, she talked to the baby while saying those things. She wouldn't hurt Rem while she had a baby. Tia was so attached to these days that she laughed off her own rule that she had made. Subaru felt that it'd be nice if that was the case. Rem, Subaru. Man, Rem, I'm not sure what to do when you make such a determined look. Rem looked at Subaru with watery, serious eyes as she firmly clenched her fist, making him knit his brows. Were her cheeks red because of determination? Or were they red because of the sunset? In any case, he shrunk back when Rem implicitly showed her determination to have a second child. Of course, Subaru was also in favor of having another so that the child would have a younger sibling, but family finances were a big problem. They had their first one pretty haphazardly, so he wanted to be more careful with the second one. Subaru, but if Tia has a change of heart, well, I don't think that'll happen anyways. Rem, maybe if we keep having kids nonstop until we die. Subaru, that idea kind of sounds like a horror. In response to Rem seriously making scary plans, Subaru took her hand and guided her downstairs. Rem follows his natural guidance, and Tia was waiting at the bottom as she went down the stairs a little quicker. Going home in the evening, the usual affectionate time. 4 days left, this might be the last of these times. It was a fleeting scene that made him feel regretful. Somehow that evanescence made Subaru's heart ache as he squinted at the bright setting sun. Hallible. Oh, you must be beat. You worked all day again. When they came back to the tenement house, they saw Hallible smoking his kaisru sitting on a bench. Lately, Hallible has tended to skip out on going to work with Tia. It seemed he was taking advantage of Tia being used to her job now, and so the eternal playboy made his comeback. In other words, he was headed towards becoming a bum. Naturally, the three of them treated him coldly now. Tia, how lucky you are yet again. Even though you're a mutt, you can't be a watchdog when you're staggering all over the place. Subaru, does the food taste good when you don't work? Hallible, woo, a storm of verbal abuse. That's not nice. Rem, say something about this. Rem, let's see. I think food tastes the best when you're fulfilled with work. Hallible, it's just the way you put it that's gentle. You're just as hurtful as Subaru. Hallible gets struck by Subaru, Tia, and then Rem with finishing blows, and he leaned back as he surrendered. After that, he slowly brought his bent body back into its original posture and said, Hallible, yes, lately I haven't been working and have been lazing around, but today was a bit different. Tia, a bit different, and yet it seems your laziness hasn't gotten any better. Hallible, let's not talk about that. Also, I've done all these things for you today, so I'd like you to take that into account. Hearing Hallible's statement, Tia pointed at herself with a blank look. Once Hallible calmly nodded, he pointed the tip of his kaisru towards the tenement house, towards the entrance to Tia's room. Hallible, come on, Sue, reveal it. Subaru, you act as if I'm an accomplice for your schemes, but you haven't told me anything either. Oh. After the calming instruction, Subaru opened the sliding door to Tia's room. Once he took a look inside, the scenery made his eyes open wide. Inside there was Rem. Wow, flowers, sweets, and even kimonos, are these gifts? Rem, who viewed the room like Subaru did, put her hands together, and she was impressed as her eyes sparkled. As implied by Rem's words, Tia's room had a total makeover. This room, which Subaru and Rem previously lived in, had the minimum amount of furniture and was quite bland, even after the marks from Tia's rage were repaired. And now, flowers were placed here and in the room, as well as kimonos and candy boxes on top of the tatami mats. It was full of all kinds of gifts. Subaru, for someone like Mr. Hallible, these touches are quite nice. Hallible, haha, what do you think? See me in a new light now, right? That's what I'd like to say, but these gifts aren't really from me. These are gifts from the townspeople. Receiving praiseful words from Subaru, Hallible quickly gives away the truth. It was too thoughtful for someone like Hallible, so he was convinced when he was told that he didn't do all this. But to tell the truth, he was shocked. The people of Bonnin Town gifted the owner of room. That is, they gifted Tia. Hallible, about Tia's work, I did say that her arrest rate is impressive, right? But the employment agency job isn't the only job where Tia is helping with all sorts of things. Rem, she has a job on top of her employment agency one. Hallible, it's more like a helper sort of thing. She frequently goes around doing favors. They piled up, and this is how they've repaid her. Listening to Hallible give an explanation with his arms folded, Subaru and Rem looked at each other, showing that neither of them knew about all this. Strangely enough, this is exactly what they had thought about. There were many times when people in town said hi to Tia in a very friendly way when they were on their way back from places like Temple Elementary School or the bathhouse. Subaru thought that this was because of her achievements with her employment agency job, but that wasn't the case. Tia had been deepening her exchanges with the townspeople without Subaru and Rem knowing about it. Subaru and Rem were comprehending the situation, whereas Tia was silent in front of the presents she was given. Her cheeks were red, and she was just playing with her hair with her finger to show her confusion. Without knowing what was this feeling welling up inside as if it was too much to handle. Rem, let's have a feast tonight. We have all this food after all. Tia, Rem, these presents are for Miss Tia. We can't let it go to waste. I may not be able to finish it all myself, so will you help me? Tia's eyes shook as she heard Rem's proposal. Then, after pondering for a little bit, Tia nodded deeply at Rem without saying anything. Seeing her nod, Rem rolls up her sleeves, and so began the preparations for the feast. 7, even though it was a feast, there was no clear thing they were celebrating. But still, if they were having this feast for something, it would be Rem. To celebrate Miss Tia becoming a member of the town. Then, Rem tells Subaru that with a smile, and this was enough to convince him. Celebrating becoming a member of the town. For Subaru and Rem, having the people around them kindly helping them out because they knew about their child was like proof that they were recognized by the town. If something similar happened to Tia, that truly would be wonderful. On top of the dining table, each and every one of the plates were empty. Only 4 people were having a feast, but it was still a feast. Rem had put in her full effort, and she attacked with an amount of food worthy of her reputation. However, Tia faced all of it head-on, and with Subaru and Hallibal's help, amazingly managed to finish it off. And so she gave in to the fullness of her big stomach, and she was now breathing in her sleep. Subaru. She becomes a cow as soon as she sleeps after eating, and now her beauty is ruined. Hallibal. Oh, Sue, I'm surprised you're saying this when your wife is right next to you. Subaru. I'm always praising Rem 100 times as much as that. Besides, I have no intentions of harming Tia. Tia is like, she's like a little sister. Judging off their appearances, it wasn't clear who was older. However, by comparing their behavior and common sense, a whole audience would agree that Subaru was older than Tia. In fact, neither Rem nor Hallibal disagreed, and they just made gentle looks upon hearing Subaru's statement. Hallibal. But I don't think she fell asleep just because she got full. She secretly took some sips of that. Subaru. Some sips, oh. As Hallibal chuckled, he pointed it somewhere behind Tia's, but while she lay down, hidden in the hem of her dress was an awfully expensive bottle of alcohol. This was probably one of her gifts as well. Although, Subaru and the others did come to the decision to not let Tia drink since it'd be risky. Hallibal. Continuing to hide something just because you've already began doing it, children find it intriguing. Eventually, it turned out like this. Subaru. But you were still wrong to let it happen while knowing about it. Hallibal. It's so cute how she sleeps right after having a taste of it. If she caused ruckus everywhere because of this, I would have had to take responsibility, but that didn't happen. Subaru frowned when Hallibal judged that everything turned out all right in the end. However, when he looked at Tia's calm, sleeping face, he started to feel that he was wrong to be mad. Even if Tia got drunk off alcohol, she would use violence on Subaru, like she did before, and get back her light sphere, even if it meant taking Rem's life away. It was very hard for him to imagine her doing that. Hallibal, about the light sphere, Subaru. Learned something? Hallibal. I frequently went around investigating. Did you think I was just lazing around? Hallibal opens one of his slit eyes, and he gave a wink that meant the opposite of what it normally would mean. Seeing him do that, Subaru raises his eyebrows in surprise as he said, Subaru. Yeah, I thought you were just fooling around, now I think better of you. Rem. Yes, I see you in a much better light now. Impressive, Mr. Hallibal. Hallibal. Here I was thinking about how skilled you guys are at acting normal as married couple. Giving a wry smile, Hallibal scratches his own black-haired head. After that, in a low tone, he said, Hallibal. Sorry to get your hopes up. I haven't heard anything about what exactly this light sphere is or where it's at. The situation is still the same. I'm sorry. Subaru. Sigh, Hallibal. Can you hold in your sighs? Also, if I haven't heard anything about the light sphere, isn't that enough to give us some nice information, such that even the existence of it is fishy? Rem. So you're suspecting Miss Tia made everything up? Hearing Hallibal's words, Rem's voice tenses up, and she says that in a bit of a criticizing manner. Subaru also felt disgusted by his assumption, although not as much as Rem. Tia truly was determined to get her light sphere back, hence why she was constantly checking for it on the way home today. There's no way she was lying and making stuff up. Hallibal, there's also the possibility that she just can't think that it could be anyone else. Tia isn't normal. Sue, Rem, you must know that, right? However, Hallibal makes that assertion to the two of them who denied his hypothesis with emotional arguments. Perhaps he calmly saw the truth objectively, because these were the views of Shinobis. Or maybe Subaru and Rem were simply too soft on Tia, and they were just looking away from reality. Hallible. Once Rem gives birth. This was the first time Hallible put the time they had left into clear words. The inescapable reality was coming closer. It was the time when a decision would be made, as well as the time to make a choice. Will it be up to Subaru, Rem, or Tia? Subaru. There's no need to give an answer right away. Hallible. Maybe, but an answer will have to be given eventually. As Subaru replied, Hallible quietly said that with his head down. Subaru becomes silent and says nothing in response to his words, and when Rem slowly stood up, Rem, I can't let Miss Tia catch a cold. Subaru, oh, I'll do it. Subaru takes out a blanket instead of Rem, who was near the closet. In the last few days, nights have been remarkably chilly. Of course, Rem wanted Tia to be especially taken care of. Rem, Miss Tia, I will be moving the alcohol. Would you like the futon to be spread out? Rem steps up to Tia as she slept, and she talked to her affectionately. And then, she collects the bottle of alcohol Tia hid in her hem, and she started to loosen the sash of her dress so that she didn't have trouble sleeping. Suddenly, Rem's hands were caught in white fingertips. Rem. Miss Tia. It was the same old way she called out her name. Rem, who was looking straight at Tia's sleeping face, was the only one who was able to tell that something was wrong. Subaru, who was carrying the blanket, did not notice it, and neither did Hallible, who smoked his kaisru at the window. A trickle of tears was slowly rolling down Tia's cheeks. Tia. Give it back. A frail, low murmur came from Tia's thin lips. Rem says what? As she tried to hear that voice melting in the ephemera atmosphere, and then she brought her ears closer, Tia. Give back me. That moment, a wind blew. Subaru, ah! Subaru screams, and he immediately unfolded the blanket he was holding. Rem was blown away into him. Unable to withstand the impact, he gets blown away to the back. Subaru somehow forcefully wraps Rem in the blanket, and he crashed into the kitchen with his back. The cooking utensils make a loud noise as they fell onto the floor, and the food left in the pot gets thrown out. Subaru. Kaha? While the pain disturbed Subaru's breathing, he looked forward with his eyes wide open, wondering what just happened. He saw the room that changed within just a few seconds. The dining table and the tatami mats flew off, and the magic gem lights hanging from the ceiling were violently turning on and off. There was an opening in the middle of the room, as if a beast had torn into it with its nails. Standing before it was Tia, whose wide dress waved in the wind as she shed tears. Wind and a bite attack, it was more than enough to remind him of the attack that had happened that one night. Subaru. Tia! Subaru cries that. However, it didn't reach Tia as she continued to shed tears endlessly while she held her head. Her eyes looked confused and she was muttering something. Tia. My arms, my legs, my body, where is it? Where did it go? Her steps were unsteady, her eyes made it seem like she was dreaming, but the danger was so clear, Hallible. So, a shinobi had to deal with such danger in a way a shinobi would. Hallible evaded the first wind by clinging onto the ceiling. It wasn't clear how someone tall like him accomplished that. However, after Hallible escaped danger, he got off the ceiling, and he free fell down onto Tia's head, dealing a blow to her. What hit her was a fist axe, where he put his big hands together. It was such a powerful hit that it could have smashed a large tree. The force he struck with had a chance to kill Tia if it hit her, as she was frail. Tia, shedding tears, dodged it, and she kicked up the broken dining table, repelling Hallible, who dropped down. In this small room, Hallible, jumping around lightly as a tall man, and Tia, who was trying to get the upper hand, were clashing with magic. It was the return of that night. Although the location was different, the situation was the same. Tia's invisible bite attacks could not reach Hallible because of the kunai he threw. However, the aftermath had serious effects on its surroundings, and the tenement house got cut up again and again, destroying it. Hallible. This isn't good. Sue and Rem are going to get crushed. Perceiving the collapse of the tenement house as dangerous, Hallible screams and steps hard on the floor. Then, the tatami mats just barely left on the floor sprung up from below one by one. Tia, who was on top of one, gets sent flying by the unexpected impact, and she was being blown out of the tenement house. Turning over tatami mats, that is what Hallible pulled off, although it wasn't clear how he did it. Subaru. The moment Subaru realized that, He gave a jolt to his stiff lower half of his body, and he stood up. Inside his arms there was Rem, who was wrapped in a blanket. While holding on to her, he dashed out the back of the tenement house. Subaru. Rem, are you all right? Rem. When Subaru started to feel how cold the air felt, he realized that his whole body was wet with cold sweat. He ignored how nasty it was and called Rem's name as he held her in his arms. Rem. Subaru-ku. Subaru. Rem. Rem called Subaru's name as she wheezed. Subaru screeches because of it, and he slowly unfolded the blanket to check if she was injured. From what he could see, there were no injuries. His blood ran cold when he was inside of Tia's wind up close. Had something gone wrong, Rem might have been cut into along with the space. It was a miracle that she just ended up getting blown away, Rem. What about Miss Tia? Subaru. Take it easy. Tia, Mr. Hallible is doing something about Tia now. What's more important right now is you. How's your body? Rem. I'm fine, Ku. Subaru. Rem. Rem tried to smile bravely, but her body bent with an agonized look on her face. That makes Subaru's eyes widen, and then Rem held onto her stomach before his eyes, suffering. The situation indicated the worst-case scenario. Subaru. Subaru hits his head, almost going into a panic, and he lifted Rem again with the blanket. There were still signs of Hallible and Tia clashing at the other side of the tenement house. However, this wasn't the time for that. It wasn't, and yet Subaru. Tia, Hallible, stop. That's enough. He ran to the front and yelled at the two clashing people to stop fighting. Hearing that, Tia slowly looked his way while Hallible stayed cautious. Both of them had the same person in their eyes, and he didn't know why they felt so moved. Regardless, the madness in Tia's eyes settled down, and Hallible really was no longer preparing for combat. Tia. Huh! Tia let out a stunned and dumbfounded gasp, and when he looked at Subaru and the others, her surroundings made her think back. She thought back about the marks of destruction, Rem's suffering, Subaru looking desperate, and Hallible fighting. Tia. Huh! Tia just kept letting that out, looking like she didn't know what had happened. Hallible quickly ran up to Subaru and Rem without paying attention to Tia. Hallible. How's Rem? Subaru. She's holding onto her stomach and it looks like she's in pain. We have to get her to the doctor as soon as possible. Hallible. I'll carry her. It'll be faster that way. Sue, you hurry too. Hallible immediately picked up Rem along with the blanket, as if snatching her, and he jumped across the street with an extremely light leap, going off to get the old family magic user. Subaru sees Hallible jumping towards the moon, and he hurries after him. Tia. Why, wait! A shaky voice called out to him from behind. Subaru stops for a moment, and then he looked back. He saw Tia standing alone, reaching her hand out for his back. She wasn't close enough to reach. She just had the will to try to stop him. Tia. Subaru. Subaru couldn't find the words to speak to Tia, who didn't finish her sentence. He gave in to his impatience. Actually, he was probably feeling irritated as well. He had no time to stop moving. He had to run to Rem as soon as possible. The frustration makes Subaru's feet move, and he starts running, leaving Tia behind. Tia. He felt like Tia's hoarse voice faintly reached his earlobes. However, Subaru didn't stop, and he didn't tell Tia to follow him either. Was he angry at her? Of course, that was one reason. Was she afraid of her? Of course, that was another reason. However, the biggest reason he ran away is because he was scared of speaking to Tia, as he didn't know what to say. Stranger. Your wife is fine. She's calmed down. That was pretty dangerous for both the mother and the child. In the clinic he ran into, the old magic user said that after finishing the treatment, which took a few hours, hearing the calmness of Rem's breathing as she lay down on the bed, Subaru felt relief from the bottom of his heart, and words were not enough to express his gratitude towards Hallible and the old magic user. And then he went next to Rem as she slept, and he decided to wait as long as it'd take for her to wake up. Even if Hallible returned to the tenement house and tells him that Tia isn't there, even if the old magic user tells him to take rest, he was going to wait as long as it'd take for Rem to open her eyes. Rem, Subaru. Rem woke up. He hears her voice, and he hugged her while shedding tears, confirming that she was okay. Peace within his heart was restored at last, and after that they faced reality. Tia never returned to the tenement house again. And so, The noisy, fun life of the strange neighbors at the tenement house met its end. The 3 months after that went by within a blink of an eye. The predicted date for Rem to give birth was coming closer and closer. Chapter 5. 10 months 1 Rem. Thank you very much for your help again. I must be going now, doctor. Stranger. Take care of yourself as best as you can. The baby might be born at any time, after all. If you get carried here like last time, I may or may not be available. Rem. Yes, I'll take your words to heart. Stranger. Now go already. Rem bows, and the old magic user waved her goodbye while holding on to his blunt attitude. At a glance, it did seem like a perfunctory response, but now that they knew the old magic user for a long time, the true intention of his blunt attitude was clear. Since there was sharpness in his words, you could tell that his skills and the care for his patients were genuine. This relieved Subaru, and he didn't mind bringing Rem to the healing magic user. Subaru. Still, my heart was pounding like a drum. Like the doctor said, the baby really can be born at any moment. Rem. Geez, you can't be like that, Subaru. If you're always so nervous, your body won't be able to take it when the time comes. Keep it in check and prepare yourself calmly. Subaru. Right, keep things in moderation and act calm. With her hand on her mouth, Rem giggles at Subaru, who was so nervous that his legs and arms made it apparent while he walked. Rem's stomach was now undoubtedly big, and she was approaching the last month of pregnancy. There was a time when the mother and the child were in serious danger, but fortunately they were able to recover and the baby inside grew normally. Without a doubt, that was all possible because of Rem's strong will and Subaru's constant support. Ever since that night, Subaru has been even more devoted to Rem, and he did his best to support her by her side. His coworkers and friends said that he was great for it, but that wasn't true. Doing something like this was just natural once you considered the fear and confusion he'd experienced that night, in that moment. Just imagining the fear of possibly losing Rem and their child made his blood run cold. Rem, thanks to you, I've been feeling so relaxed. I'm not sure if I'll be able to live the way I did before after being cared for so much by my husband and giving birth to our child. Subaru. Right now, you have an important job of raising the baby with your stomach as the cradle. Until that's finished, leave all the little tasks to me. If something bothers you, don't take care of it yourself. Be hard on me and teach me, like you always have. Rem. Okay. Listening to Subaru's dramatic orders, Rem nods, acting playfully again. Just like Rem said, Subaru has been doing most of the jobs in the house instead of her. Subaru's responsibility was to do as much cooking, laundry, and cleaning as possible. Of course, at first he did make a lot of mistakes, and it was clear that he was unskilled and lacked knowledge, but he was able to pull through with Rem's guidance and help from his female coworkers when he was having trouble. And so now Subaru has attained house husband skills that were good enough to Rem. Subaru. It's all thanks to Rem being an excellent teacher. Rem. No. Subaru's already a fast learner and you're good with your hands, so it was fun to teach you. I'm sure that you're suited for tasks at home, too. Subaru. I just never had many opportunities to try them. I actually think I am, too. He just never had any opportunities. He knew that he had a high aptitude for things like cooking, laundry, and cleaning. At this point, it's been proven that he has a high aptitude for being a husband on top of his sewing skills. A group of Kararagi housewives had even surrounded him unexpectedly and confirmed that he was doing fine. Subaru. I wonder what we should have tonight. Rem, what would you like to eat? Rem. Let's see, I'd like to eat something sour. Subaru. That's a really classic request for a pregnant woman. Are you sure that you want to eat something sour? Rem. Well, I was craving for it when I got pregnant, but not so much anymore. It's why I snuck in a lot of sour food back then. Subaru. The cat's out of the bag with that shocking truth. There were many times when they'd have sour fruits or vinegared food. That being said, at the time even Rem wasn't aware that she was pregnant, so he was still a bit puzzled. Subaru. I've heard that morning sickness gets terrible and you start craving sour food. With that considered, you haven't had much morning sickness. Rem, now that you mention it, that might be true. Maybe it's the works of me really wanting to avoid showing myself being weak with you around. Subaru, you've got strong nerves of steel. I'm just glad that we weren't too late. It was discovered that Rem was pregnant when she lost consciousness and was taken to the healing magic user. If she'd never lost consciousness and kept everything inside, they might have never noticed that she was pregnant until her stomach became unnaturally large. Rem, and I'm sure I would have done everything I could to not have you think that I got fat, hiding how big my stomach was. Subaru, and I'm sure I would have kept being fooled so easily. That really just isn't okay. Come to think of it, it's a good thing they had figured it out while they could still recover from mistakes. And on the night that sparked the realization, there was Subaru. Naturally and unavoidably, his memory approaches that night. That made Subaru's expression turn sour, but it was something unavoidable. In the memories of the time he spent in Bonn town, she was there in those 3 months, no matter where he looked. In the funnest, loudest days that were still vivid in his memory, there was Tia. Rem, Miss Tia, Subaru. She's nowhere to be found. I put up a notice at Klane's, and Mr. Hal's searching for her too, but he's found nothing. Hearing Rem's melancholic murmuring, Subaru speaks quickly in response. This showed that he didn't want to talk about Tia anymore if possible. However, Rem shook her head at his request as she said, Rem, Subaru, are you mad at Miss Tia? Subaru, yes, of course I am. Do you know how much danger you were in? You and the baby were in serious danger, and she's the one at fault. Rem, Subaru, and she even got the hell out before I could give her a piece of my mind, let alone hear her apologize. How could I not be mad after all that? Ever since the final night, Tia completely disappeared from the town. Subaru's last memory of Tia was him running to the clinic, leaving her behind and watching her cower like a child. When he came back to the tenement house, which was on the verge of collapsing, after confirming that Rem was fine, Tia had already disappeared from the area. Afterwards, even Hallible helped out and they looked all over the town, but in the end they never found out a trace of her as months 3 passed by. Wondering where Tia ran off to, wondering where did that strange neighbor go, all while never being allowed to see her as something more than a neighbor. Rem, if you ran into her and she apologized, would you forgive her? Subaru, would you, Rem? I definitely would. I love Miss Tia after all. Subaru, Rem's soft words were understandable. She'd forgiven Tia from the bottom of her heart. Rem said the reason was that she loved Tia. Subaru had nothing to say once she told him that. Even Subaru probably felt the same way as Rem did. He cared about Tia. He considered her a friend. And yet, the unpleasant feeling Subaru felt inside was still there, and he didn't forgive Tia. Subaru felt the same way as Rem did and shared the same memories with her. Perhaps he didn't forgive because of their difference in tolerance. Or maybe there was a different reason. Subaru. While talking, Subaru and Rem went back home. Currently, they weren't living at the tenement house from before, but at a house near the town area through the courtesy of Riffin. The tenement house had collapsed from the damage of that night. It never got rebuilt, and the spot was now a vacant lot of the tenement house. Knowing that they'd lost their house, Riffin was the one who put in a good word for them. He really did feel bad about depending on him all the time, but them having a baby made him forget about restraining himself. The temporary residence was unexpectedly comfortable, and it was far more considerate of Rem's condition than the cramped tenement house. Perhaps this was also a result of Riffin's thoughtfulness. Rem, but I feel it's still a bit too big for just the two of us. So said Rem as she slowly sat down in the living room. Unlike the tenement house, which was pretty much one room as it was just divided, this house had more than enough of everything. But even if they had a living room, a bedroom, and private room for each of them, Subaru, it's probably a room for the child for when it's born. This is Mr. Riffin we're talking about. I can see him thinking that far ahead. Rem, you have a lot faith in Mr. Riffin, huh? Subaru, he's helped us out so much after all. I'm not gonna lose trust in him just because he's got a thing for cougars. I've got tons of favors I have to repay. Rem, yeah, me too. I need to repay the people at Temple Elementary School and the magic user doctor. And there's also Mr. Hallible. Subaru, Mr. Hal, huh? Hearing Hallible's name, Subaru knitted his brows as he put luggage in the closet. Ever since the tenement collapsed and they started living in completely different places, they had much fewer chances to meet with Hallible. The days when they'd see each other like a family were over, and it seemed Hallible wasn't a playboy anymore and was doing his best to fulfill his duty as a shinobi. Subaru, he must feel responsible for what happened to you. Rem, well, it wasn't even Mr. Hallible's fault, though. Subaru, I mean, still, Tia suddenly changing, if there was something that triggered that, it had to have been the alcohol. He must feel down as the person that let it happen. Hallible especially was someone who'd jokingly say that he'd answer with his life if any problems ever came up. Even Subaru didn't know if he blamed himself so much for him to do such a thing. Honestly, it's not like he blamed Hallible and wished that he'd stopped Tia before she poured herself alcohol. In reality, even Subaru wasn't so childish that he'd blame him by telling him that, but it wouldn't be strange if Hallible was frustrated with himself for it. Thus, Hallible has been committed to finding where Tia ran off to. Subaru, Rem, I'm gonna go shopping. Do you want anything? No matter what they did, talking about that night always made them feel depressed. Rem feeling down isn't good for the baby. To avoid this, Subaru forced the topic to change. His thoughtfulness should have been obvious to Rem, but she shook her head as she said, Rem, no, I'm fine, and you don't have to ask every day. I'm not so selfish that I'd ask for this and that. Subaru, but with how you are right now, I want you to be selfish more than anyone, you know? Rem, in that case, I want you to stay with me forever. Subaru, I'm guessing this is what you came up with after perfecting the delivery. Subaru smiles wryly at Rem's cute pestering, and he stood up once he was ready to go shopping. He thought about having sour food for tonight's dinner, as Rem had requested. Although it sounded like a joke, she probably had told him since she really did want to have it. Subaru, okay, Rem, I'm leaving now. Behave and sit tight, all right? Rem, both the baby and I will behave. After that interaction, Subaru left the house to go shopping. He headed towards the town area, however, he wasn't going straight to the grocery store. He was going to Klane's employment agency. To Klane, unfortunately, I have no idea where Tia is. Sorry. Klane, giving a reply that was now routine, bowed his head to Subaru, who showed up here on a regular basis. Subaru shook his head, letting him know that he didn't have to act apologetic. This also had become a completely normal exchange. Klane, everyone's worried about that girl. This goes without saying, but she was loved. Subaru, she was really skilled, right? Not that I still have any doubts or anything. Klane, she was the best. A girl her age having bounty hunting as her calling isn't something that should be told to everyone, though. Anyway, I'll keep searching. Subaru, I'm counting on you. The missing person poster posted on the wall. The personal description on the request form was even edited by Subaru, and it captured Tia's traits pretty well. But her beauty that defied common sense still wasn't written on it. Needless to say, Tia was so beautiful that one would think that she wasn't from this world. Subaru, the pain from my nose being smashed begs to differ, though. Klane, nose being smashed? Subaru, nothing, just talking to myself. Klane waves his hand at Subaru, and he leaves the employment agency. He was genuinely worried about Tia in his own way. He was feeling more and more on edge. It was as if he was the only one in the world who cared about Tia. Subaru, this is ridiculous. It's not the time to be saying stuff like this. I'll buy some green onions and forget about it. Brushing off his sadness, Subaru bought some green onions, or rather, green onions displayed on the greengrocer. He places them into the bag and starts constructing tonight's menu inside his head. Subaru, I first bought green onions, so it should be the main ingredient actually. Green onions are pretty flexible, so even if they aren't the focus of the meal, things will come together just fine. With Rem and the ladies' guidance, Subaru had mastered plenty of recipes. He picks the best out of the many good bargains displayed at the shopping district. Lemon, tomato, cabbage, cooking sake, fish, eggs, rice, soy sauce, Tia, wheat flour. Subaru. Tia. While carefully selecting ingredients, a shadow appeared in Subaru's vision for just a moment, and he gasped. If he looked away thinking that he took her for someone else, her milky white hair would have disappeared into the crowd. Although he saw it for just a moment, he was still sure of it. That was Tia's hair. Subaru. Tia, wait, hey, wait. That moment, Subaru yelled, and he started running frantically. Subaru slips through a gap in the crowd of people, and he ran after her desperately as she became distant. Tia moved smoothly, as if there was no one in her way, whereas Subaru bumped into other people. But still, the distance between someone who walks and someone who runs closes eventually. Suddenly, Subaru loses sight of Tia's head in the surging crowd, and he looked everywhere while panicking. He saw the hem of her dress disappear into an alley. Subaru. Tia. While praying that his eyes weren't deceiving him, Subaru tumbled into the alley. Then, after he kicked the hard ground and ran, he saw someone standing in the dark passageway. She had a slender, delicate back, and she was pretty tall for a girl. That short, shoulder-length, milky white hair couldn't belong to anyone else. Subaru. Ha ha, Tia, I've been looking for you. Why'd you run away? Tia. Tia did not respond to Subaru's question. However, she had no intentions of running away anymore. Subaru understood that, so he dropped his luggage onto the ground while regaining his breath. And then he walks up to Tia as she stood in the darkness and reached for her shoulder. Subaru. Come on, I know it's hard for us to see each other, but at least look my way. Holding onto her shoulder dressed in black, Subaru spoke to Tia in a somewhat blunt manner. The unpleasantness of the trouble from that night blackened out the happiness from seeing her. If she at least had an expression that made it look like she was going through rough times, maybe he could be more honest. While hoping for that, Subaru turned her around and Tia. Die! He was hit by a violent wind of bloodlust head-on. 3 Hallible, Sue, are you here? Rem. Mr. Hallible? The door to the house gets thrown open, and Rem gasps in surprise upon hearing a voice that came in. And then she saw that it was a black-haired wolf man that entered the house. It was Hallible. It was a face Rem hadn't seen for a whole month. However, although it was the first time in a while that they'd seen each other, there wasn't a welcoming atmosphere. Hallible looked around the house as he said, Hallible. Rem, I know it's been a while, but this is an emergency. Where's Sue? Rem, Subaru is out shopping for dinner. He should be coming back very soon. Hallible. Og, so we missed each other. This is terrible. Not good, this isn't good. Hallibe scratches his head, and he couldn't calm down, making him sound antsy. Rem senses that he was acting unusual, and she stood up while holding onto her baby belly as she said, Rem. Mr. Hallible, what happened? If it's something that has to do with Subaru, please tell me. Hallible. Ah, Rem, you really shouldn't push yourself too hard. I could have been more clear, but telling you straight up that Sue's in danger would be, or wait, maybe I could just tell you. Rem. Mr. Hallible. Hallible. Rem, I told you this before, right? Do you remember? Because of my nose, I know that there might be someone going after Sue. Hallible's question makes Rem's eyes widen. Although it wasn't entirely correct, most of the parts were accurate perceptions. Someone might be going after Subaru. That's what Rem told Hallible after guessing what Tia's goal was when she tried to harm her and Subaru. She told him about the miasma surrounding Subaru. That is, the possibility of having the witches sent. Rem. Yes, I did say. That, however, that's irrelevant, and Miss Tia's actually going for me, not Subaru, and that's also probably a misunderstanding. Hallible. No, that's not quite right. It wasn't a misunderstanding, and it was relevant. Dang it, I'm not being clear again. Right, we were mistaken, we were wrong. Rem. Wrong about what? Hallible. About who the culprit really is, and about who Tia really is. Rem gasps at the unexpected statement. When Hallible opened his eyes, which were usually closed like slit eyes, there was heavy regret in his revealed black pupils as he said, Hallible. It's my mistake. I have no excuses. It's a total failure. I miscalculated everything. Because of that, we might have a dangerous situation on our hands. Rem. I don't get it, Mr. Hallible. Please explain everything from the top. Hallible. It all started approximately 1 year ago. The quest for Zerstja's bed was the beginning. Hallible listens to Rem's question, and the details he talked about were like a bolt from the blue yet again. Zerstja, Rem also remembered that name. It was one of the 4 powerful great spirits, known as the 4 Great Spirits, an entity that lived in Zerstja's bed, located in the west side of Kararagi. But as for what that quest started, Hallible, Zerstja's bed is a famous place wind blows, killing anyone near it. At first, the investigation team application was brushed off as a reckless challenge for daredevils, but, Rem. But, Hallible, Who knows if it was a miracle or something, but there's one person who managed to return alive. If it had just been a survivor, then the story would have ended as someone who barely escaped death. But, judging from the way Hallible recited the story, she guessed that it didn't end there. And then she also guessed what Hallible was trying to confirm just earlier when he was feeling frantic. The moment Rem connected the dots in her mind, her eyes opened wide in terror. Hallible. The girl who survived was someone seeking revenge, and she sought Zerstja's power out of hatred for the witch cult. 4. A wind blew, and it was probably sharp enough to easily shred Subaru's body into bits and pieces. Or maybe being cut up by that wind and turning into bright red meat was Subaru's punishment as someone who turned his back on everything. Or at least, that's what he thought in that moment. Tia, what are you spacing out for? Are you stupid? Subaru. Whoa! He gets grabbed by the scruff of his neck, and he was flung back at once without being able to resist. Then he bounced on the ground, and he rolled without defending himself. And then, when Subaru looked in front of him while grimacing at the pain, he saw that the one who flung him was Subaru. Tia, is that you? Tia. Not like there could be any other beauties here right now other than myself. Well, that's what I'd like to say, but I'm not so sure if I could. Bending forward lightly, Tia turns just her head back. Both that rough tone and the way she treated Subaru rudely were just like her, no doubt about it. And as for what Tia's statement meant, he'd find out immediately with the scene right before his eyes. Subaru. Standing in front of Tia, who threw Subaru, was another Tia. Two Tias with the same face and the same appearance were facing each other. Their looks were completely identical. The one difference between them was their dresses. They were clearly different in that one was black and one was white. The Tia dressed in black tried to kill Subaru, while the one dressed in white protected him. In other words, Subaru. Black Tia is an enemy and white Tia is an ally. Tia. You aren't wrong, but I don't like the way you put it. Hearing Subaru shout with his face lying on the ground, white Tia stepped forward immediately as she muffled her voice. She shot her thin body like a bullet and came at the opponent who had the same face as her. Using the power of her beast-like body, white Tia mercilessly strikes black Tia's face with her hand. That instant, black Tia put a smile on her incomprehensible, demonic, beautiful face. Black Tia, die! White Tia. White Tia avoids the bite attack by quickly jumping up. However, the invisible attacks went after White Tia, shot into the sky one after another. White Tia kicks the wall, jumps diagonally, like jumping in a triangular motion, and she dodged. White Tia. Why you're persistent. Even if she jumped up walls, Kararagi buildings were short in general. White Tia quickly landed on top of the alley and angrily swung her arm at the ground. That moment, White Tia struck down with an attack similar to Black Tia's bite attack. However, it was clearly weak. White Tia's wasn't as good as hers. Black Tia dodges it by quickly jumping away as if it was inevitable. White Tia. Damn it, you're me and yet you're stronger. Black Tia. Die. Black Tia did nothing but speak bloodthirsty words to White Tia, who was furious with rage. However, the difference in strength was showing in their few attacks. If they kept fighting like this one-on-one, eventually White Tia would be at a disadvantage. Even Subaru knew that as someone who almost got into danger just by watching. Therefore, Subaru. Look at me, fake Tia. Black Tia. Subaru gets up and he was close to the wall. He jumped at his handbag that had been blown away onto the ground by the wind, and he was throwing things that were in it. However, unfortunately, the first thing that went flying parabolically was a green omian. The long, green vegetable spun, lost momentum, and fell to the ground before it reached Black Tia. That pointless resistance makes Black Tia turn her attention towards Subaru. Above him, White Tia was also staring at Subaru, wondering what he was doing. Still, this was fine. This was fine. He wasn't hoping to damage her or anything. He had no weapons, after all. If he could at least create a situation where it was a superficial 2-on-1, if he could at least make up for White Tia's misses, Subaru. Black Tia. Goo-goo. Just from being stared at, Subaru felt his mind freeze as it creaked. Black Tia's eyes were empty. There was nothing you could classify as emotion, and nothing you could classify as will. In them was darkness, nothing but jet-black bloodlust that embodied it. Bloodlust, and that's it. As scary as it was, Black Tia had nothing but bloodlust. So Black Tia's actions were the very definition of simple. The best actions just to kill were simple. And at this very moment, she didn't want White Tia's blood, but Subaru's. Black Tia. Damn you! Sensing death being wished upon him, Subaru swung his arm as he resisted the fear entangling his body. However, his resistance was all for naught in the end. The bottle he held onto couldn't do much. It didn't hit Black Tia. It fell onto the ground before him and broke loudly. Everything spilled out. That moment, Black Tia's expression changed. Black Tia, Subaru, what? Suddenly, Black Tia opened her eyes and stared at the bottle that fell before her. There was a broken bottle, a bottle of cooking sake just rolling and spilling out everything. Subaru, it's just alcohol, you know? Black Tia. Black Tia couldn't respond to Subaru's dumbfoundment. Her cheeks stiffened. She covered her face with her hands, stepped back, and she was letting out a groan full of pain. Black Tia was so afraid of that abomination, so afraid of the alcohol that it felt like her heart was being torn apart. White Tia. Now's my chance. Swooping down from the building's roof, Tia strikes with a dynamic kick. Black Tia, being defenseless, eats a direct hit from the kick, and she was blown away with a rough somersault. She rolls, crashes into the wall, and ended up sprawling on the ground in the alley. Subaru. Did that do it? White Tia. Ha. When she suddenly stopped focusing, though I don't know why she did, her fate was sealed. Now I will achieve retribution with my own hands, you. Subaru cheered and White Tia spoke triumphantly at the same time. White Tia was going to go after Black Tia, who collapsed, but she suddenly stopped and screamed. White Tia opened her eyes wide at the alcohol right behind her that soaked her feet. Tia, what? What's this? Yo-Yua. Subaru. Not you too. What's the big deal? It's just alcohol. White Tia was showing the same reaction, or maybe an even stronger rejection, that Black Tia had. Judging from that unusual situation, Subaru understood that their rejection towards alcohol was not just a matter of disliking it. However, before Subaru could investigate the matter, something unbelievable happened. Black Tia. Goo. Subaru. Huh, her face is disfigured. No, it's blurry. Black Tia groaned and slowly got up. Her looks slowly fell apart and they were coming off. Under it, there was a face that didn't look like Tia at all. The harshness of her eyes was similar, but her unhealthy eye bags were what stood out more. She had a pale face, and her hair color went from milky white to dark brown. Even her body shrunk. It was as if a spell had been casted on her, transforming her. Subaru. Hey! That alone was enough to shock him quite a bit. However, something even more shocking made Subaru's eyes widen. He saw two shining, protruding objects sticking out on the kneeling girl's head. Subaru. Horns? So you're an Oni. Black Tia. That was the conclusion Subaru came to after seeing the two horns sticking out on her forehead. A former member/descendant of the Oni race, like Rem. Although the woman seemed anguished over the conclusion, she let out a sharp sigh in vexation. Black Tia. Die, wrapped in a storm of overflowing bloodlust. Subaru immediately protected his face with his hands as he felt the pressure. However, she still focused on satisfying her bloodlust, and she spreaded her arms left and right, conjuring wind. Buildings to the left and right of the alley were gouged by the wind she conjured, making them collapse. Half of the building's supports were gone, and the buildings collapsed instantly. The alley was going to be buried soon. Subaru. Shit. Hey, Tia, damn it. Tia. What is this? It's on me, eek. Right after the buildings collapsed, Subaru called Tia's name. However, Tia was still shocked from having breathed in the smell of alcohol. Subaru was forced to carry her slender body, and he ran back. Subaru. Gah! Despite the collapsing noises nearing him and his back aching, Subaru ran straight through with all his energy. And right after he got out of the cramped alley, the destruction was over, and the alley was completely buried in scrap wood. There were clouds of dust in the wind, and people in the main street rushed over to see what all the big commotion was all about. They immediately reached out for Subaru and Tia, who collapsed at the alley entrance. Subaru. She's... With help, Subaru stands up, and he looks back at the alley crushed by the destruction. Nobody other than Subaru and Tia rushed out to this alley. However, it was highly unlikely for the girl to have gotten stuck and crushed in the destruction in the first place. She got away. The mysterious girl who could produce the same horn as Rem and had the same face as Tia. Subaru. Who the heck was that girl? With his sleeve, Subaru wiped his face dirty with dust and sweat, and he muttered that while panting lightly. The girl who got away wasn't going to give him the answer to his question. If there were someone else who'd give Subaru an answer, Subaru. I can count on you, right, Tia? Tia. Whatever. Tia, having finally recovered from the shock of the alcohol, replied unwillingly with a sour look. Hearing a reply characteristic of her, Subaru let out a wry smile of inappropriate relief. 5 Rem. Subaru. Thank goodness you're all right. Subaru. Whoa, careful. Subaru arrives home, and he quickly caught Rem, who jumped at him at the entranceway. Even if she jumped at him with such force, hugging his wife was still a piece of cake. That being said, he did want her to keep her expression of love in moderation since she was in the last month of pregnancy. Subaru. Rem, I'm glad you're happy to see me home, but if you keep this up, my lifespan will be shortened every time I get back. Think about the baby a bit more. Rem. I'm sorry. It's just that I heard you were in danger and, Subaru, you heard that I was in danger. From who? Although Subaru talked to Rem kindly, he grimaced at her reply. The news got around to her too quickly. It has been only about an hour since Subaru got in danger. She shouldn't be informed about the news. In fact, Subaru had planned on telling her about it after calming down. Halibal. From me, Subaru. So you were here, Mr. Hal. No wonder she found out about it so quickly. His suspicions vanished after Halibal showed himself in the corridor. As a shinobi, Halibal could know what the whole town is doing through adequate means. Subaru suspected that he'd have his clones lurk all around the town whenever push came to shove. Subaru. But don't worry Rem by telling her so quick. This is a very important time. Halibal. Sorry about that, but it was unexpected for me, too. I didn't expect Sue to get attacked at this exact time. You should tell her that you're all right since she found out that you got attacked. Don't you feel bad for Rem? Rem. Subaru, please don't blame Mr. Halibal. Mr. Halibal stopped me when I panicked and tried to run over. Halibal. Yep. Halibal made an expression that showed he was backing up Rem. Instead of detesting his behavior, for a while Subaru felt like he wasn't being himself, and he missed the timing to go off on him. Besides, this wasn't the time to be angry. Rem has the best gift of all, after all. Subaru. Honestly, right now I have a bunch of things I want to talk about, like about what happened. Rem, yes. Please tell us. We were very worried. Subaru, but not yet. First, I have someone I want you to see. Rem, who had gotten ready to listen, had a question mark above her upon hearing Subaru's statement. Subaru smiles at her, turns around to the sliding door behind him, and spoke. Subaru, how long are you going to hide? Come in. Stranger. At first, there was no response at all to Subaru. However, after a few moments of silence, the person nervously showed their face, probably because they couldn't handle the tension. The one who slowly showed her head beside the sliding door was a girl who disappeared 3 months ago, Rem. Miss Tia. Tia. Long time no see, Rem. Miss Tia. Realizing that it's Tia, Rem jumps at her with an emotional look. Amazed by her energy, Tia panics and catches her, just like the catch from earlier. Then, when Tia slowly let Rem down at the entranceway. Tia. Be more careful. Have you forgotten that you're pregnant? If I'd stepped aside, it would have been terrible. Rem. I had faith that you wouldn't do that. Tia. Tia let out a groan as she bit her lip in vexation over Rem's affectionate look. After that, she suddenly let out a sigh of defeat and looked down at Rem's stomach, which was right next to her. And her stomach was far larger than what Tia remembered. Tia. It's about to be born, huh? Rem. Yes. Our deadline with Miss Tia is coming. Tia. Rem joked around in anticipation that Tia had already completely forgotten about the deadline. And in fact, her anticipation was correct. There's no way Tia could kill Rem. Plus, Tia. Rem, about that, I have something to tell you. Rem, you need to tell me something. Tia. You, as well as Sue and Hal. Tia said that not just to Rem, but to Subaru, who was next to her, and Halibal, who was in the corridor as well. With a little anxiety showing on her serious face, she said, Tia, I finally figured out what I have to do. I want to have a good talk about that with you guys. The four of them moved to the living room of the temporary Natsuki house, and they each gathered at a desk, something that hasn't happened in a while. And so, for the first time in 3 months, everyone gathered in one room. However, this wasn't going to be a fun, noisy dinner. This was a necessary meeting to discuss more important matters. Tia, sitting straight with her hands on her lap, was the first one to speak. Although she wasn't sure how to continue, she said, Tia, for retribution, no, to get my stolen light sphere back, I came to you guys. You remember that, right? Subaru. Yep, I do. You gave us a real bad time in the beginning, after all. Rem. Yes, that's when you attacked me and Subaru in the streets at night. Subaru and Rem answered Tia, who sought a confirmation. However, half of their reply was right, while the other half was wrong. Subaru was right, while Rem made a mistake. He thought it was far too obvious, and there was nothing he'd confirmed directly, but Subaru. Rem, Tia isn't the one who attacked us in the streets on that night. Tia only beat me up at the tenement house. Rem, what? But that would mean... Halibel, yeah, that's the first misunderstanding. I was also far too careless. It was Halibel who nodded instead of Rem, as she was confused. It seemed Halibel had quickly realized the truth of this misunderstanding, being the one who actually fought with the attacker that night. He'd realized that on that night, it was Black Tia who attacked Subaru and Rem on their way home, and that they never came across the offender again up until today. Subaru, Black Tia is called Black Tia for convenience, and her face looks just like Tia's. And it's not just her face, that goes for her appearance too, everything. That's why there was a misunderstanding. Tia didn't deny it either. Tia, I really did beat up Sue, and even I had no idea there was someone out there with the same face as me. Hearing Subaru's statement, Tia gave something that sounded like an excuse as she looked away. Of course, this wasn't all on Tia. If they'd talked to Tia more to confirm the truth, they would have immediately noticed the inconsistency. That never happened because they ran away from seriously facing the issue of the girl from that night, using their fear of ruining their relationship with Tia as an excuse. Halibel, it's not Sue's fault. I should have caught on faster with that Shinigami name. Seeing Subaru hang his head, Halibel said that with his unlit kaisru in his mouth. He wasn't acting himself today. His ears were bent as if he was feeling down. Subaru, so Shinigami was a hint, Halibel. Not a hint, but the answer. Sure, there's no one here that goes by the nickname Shinigami. However, there is the most famous Shinigami. That was the missing piece to the puzzle. Subaru, the most famous Shinigami. Halibel, the most beautiful Shinigami. Halibel said that as if he was mentioning someone revered. The words he put together didn't make sense to Subaru. Still, Rem, looking at Tia with her eyes opened wide, moved her lips with a surprised look. Rem, the most beautiful Shinigami, Zerstia. Subaru. Zerstia. Zerstia, wait a second. He'd heard the name before. As Subaru began saying that, the scene of the memory came back to him vividly. He'd heard of it a few months ago at Klane's employment agency. Before he was referred to his job at Magoji Palace, Subaru happened to find an application. The details written on it were a search for Zerstia's bed. It was an application for challenging a great spirit. In other words, the name of the great spirit that lived in that bed was Subaru. Zerstia, the great spirit. Halibel, that's Tia's real name. Halibel's level voice went over Subaru's that sounded like it was forced out of his lips. The conclusion was way too out of the blue. Even if this was the truth, even the false name was too simple to begin with. They should have laughed about it, and yet nobody in the living room was laughing. Tia, the one pointed out to be a great spirit, wasn't laughing either. She simply let out a sad sigh as she said, Tia, I will say this now. I, as you guys have pointed out, am Zerstia. Rem, Miss Tia. However, I'm not all of Zerstia. I'm half, no, not even half. I'm merely a part. Subaru, what do you mean by that? Tia, putting her hand to her chest, admitted that she was a great spirit. However, there were a lot of parts missing in her explanation that followed, so Subaru threw a question back at her in confusion. Rem was the one who dealt with the mind-boggling parts of Tia's explanation. Rem, It's related to the story about the investigation team Mr. Hallible talked about, isn't it? Subaru. Investigation team, the application one. But Klain said that it was a failure. Tia. A failure, was it really? Those guys that snuck into my bed and stole what's most important to me. They stole the light sphere so easily. Tia, raising her voice, firmly and emotionally denied Subaru's statement. Light sphere, that's the name of the thing Tia kept insisting that it had been stolen, and she went after Rem for it. Rem had no idea what the light sphere was, and even the very existence of it had been suspicious to her. And now that finally would be a true key. Subaru, so what is this light sphere really? What are you looking for? Tia, it's my source of power. It's a contained stone that stores my power. Subaru, stone. A stone, wait, but if you're a spirit, then... Hearing Tia's lacking explanation, the answer starts to form in Subaru's head. A stone that is necessary in order to remain in the world for spirits who form their bodies by using mana, Subaru. So a Yorishiro, one a Yorishiro is needed so that a spirit could remain in this world. That's what the light sphere is. Now sure of it, Subaru shouted as he snapped his fingers. Mana is necessary in order for a spirit to materialize and act. If it's a great spirit, a vast amount of mana is needed. A Yorishiro, something that's needed to store it, is exactly what Tia's light sphere is. Subaru. That got stolen, so that's why Tia came to get it back. Rem. But how's that related to me? You and I have no idea what the light gem is. I didn't know we were close to the place Miss Tia had lived in, either. Despite being told about what the light sphere really is, Rem's doubt deepened even further. However, unlike Rem, who knitted her brows in confusion, the conditions to guess the answer were satisfied for Subaru. He remembered when Black Tia's looks came off and a changed person showed up in the attack from earlier. Since Subaru now knew what the light gem and Tia were, the unclear meaning of that scene led to a guess forming in his head. If that girl who showed up in the end is the one who stole Tia's light gem, then Subaru. Black Tia had horns, they were Oni horns. Rem, Oni horns, could that mean? Subaru. It's why Tia said that she'd sniffed out Rem with her nose at first with a smug look on her face. Tia mistook Rem's blood, she mistook her Oni blood for another Oni and found her. Tia, that's how it is. I can't believe myself, that was pathetic. Rem finds out the truth and her eyes opened wide. The complicated circumstances surrounding Tia introduced that girl to Subaru and Rem. And then, that misunderstanding dragging on caused all the encounters that had happened up to this day. They couldn't jump to a conclusion and blame Tia for it, calling her a troublemaker. Not if they didn't know just how desperate Tia was, as she'd lost something that made up more than half of who she was. Subaru. So basically, the light sphere, Zerstja's Yorishiro, that was stolen. And if we punish that Oni girl, the problem will be solved. Oh, but wait. Right before reaching a conclusion, Subaru tilted his head thinking that something was off. Although his guess was pretty close to the truth, one important part was missing an explanation. Tia going after Subaru and Rem was a mistake by her, but why did Black Tia attack them first? Hallible. About that, I have one more piece of information I'd like to provide. Subaru. I can only feel like it's something bad since you're telling us now. Hallible. I hate to break it to you, but you're not going to like what you're about to hear. Seeing Subaru with an uncomfortable look on his face, Hallible scratched his head as he gave a wry smile. Hallible. So, about the girl who stole something important to Tia, while I was sneaking around behind the scenes. I kinda learned about the detailed circumstances, Subaru. I take it you told Rem about this on top of investigation team thing in private, right? Rem. I only heard about this just now. I'm not hiding anything from you. It's already far too clear who matters the most to me between Mr. Hallible and Subaru. Hallible. That makes me sad, but I'm moving on. It'll be quick. This was also going to be news to Rem, who'd been informed about this and that before she came home. After Subaru nodded at Hallible's statement, he said go ahead as he urged him to continue. Hallible. It's about the light gem. The girl who stole it joined in on the Great Spirit bed quest to obtain that, but she wasn't in it for the light gem as much as she was for the Great Spirit's power. Subaru. She wanted the power of a Great Spirit. Dang, that's so reckless. For what purpose? Hallible. Revenge, probably. Revenge on the witch cult, the ones who burned her home. Subaru. The witch cult. The word Subaru had avoided up to this point came up, making him tremble. Although the group wasn't directly involved, they were directly connected to Subaru's worst memories. Not only that, but he had extremely mixed feelings after hearing that the girl viewed the witch cult as enemies. Desiring the power of a great spirit to get revenge on the witch cult, she easily got her hands on the light sphere. Using the light sphere in a certain way, she sought revenge on the witch cult Subaru. Then, after thinking it over this much, he hit the answer to his previous question. The offender's goal is to get revenge on the witch cult. She wanted the light sphere only for the power to do that. And then, having obtained the power, she looked for the witch cult and found the witches sent in Bonin town. Her target for revenge, the one she was actually going after on that night, was Subaru. So it was me, Halibal. The Avenger went for Sue, whereas Tia went for Rem. We didn't know that, so all these complicated misunderstandings happened. Halibal's conclusion cleared the doubt Subaru had in his mind, just like that. A mix-up in targets, and thinking that the two culprits were one person. That is what complicated all these problems and created an incomprehensible situation. Subaru. I knew things were getting mixed up, but with this, it all makes sense. Subaru accepted the revealed truth, and he put words together as he cleared his mind. He felt sympathy for the offending woman because of the witch cult, her target for revenge. Subaru. But it's a mistake for the offender to go after me. Her hatred for the witch cult, I get it. But killing me won't help her get over her grudge. Stealing Tia's light gem also does nothing. Halibal. There's just something about the way you put it, but you're right. While I do feel bad for her, we're gonna punish her and get the light sphere back. For anything else that happens, we'll just let the situation play itself out. Subaru. I imagine that's what we'll have to do. Subaru also nodded and agreed with Halibal's conclusion. Even with all of his questions answered, he never gave up on arriving at a conclusion. Rem's safety and Tia's feelings were more important to him than the wish of an Avenger whose name he didn't even know. In fact, now that the situation was clear, he wanted to come to a solution without any hard feelings. Subaru. If that happens, we can all... After everything's taken care of, we can all eat dinner together just like old times. Tia. That's not possible. His outlook was interrupted and denied by Tia, who stood up. The cold obstinance of Tia's words brought everyone's attention towards her. When she crossed her arms as she saw their eyes on her, she looked away from all of them as she said, Tia. I'm sorry. I can't do it. Once I get my light sphere back, I have to return to my nest. I can't live with you guys. Nothing can change that. Rem. But why? Wait, if you're worried about what happened before, it's all right. I know about your circumstances now. So, Tia, that's not it, Rem. I'm an entity that can't coexist with you all. Tia shook her head disapprovingly at Rem, who stopped sitting straight and pleaded with her. Neither Rem nor Subaru could tell what were the true intentions of her attitude, as she seemed distressed. However, Halibal, suspecting that Tia is Zerstia, there's one part that just doesn't make sense. It's the one thing that doesn't make sense. It's inconsistent. Halibal, crossing his thick arms, said that while squinting his slit eyes even more than usual. Irritated by his suggestive way of speaking, Subaru got very angry. Subaru, what are you trying to say, Halibal? Don't beat around the bush. Spit it out. Halibal. Zarestja is a Shinigami, a murderous great spirit. Anyone who enters her hideout gets killed indiscriminately. Even all the anecdotes out there are stories about murder. So what's that have to say about Tia? Rem. Well, the stories told are just messed up. I mean, they have to be, right? Hearing Halibal's remarks, Rem shows a rare scene of her flaring up irritatedly. Even Subaru felt the same way as Rem. But Tia, they aren't messed up. Right now, I am the one who's messed up. Rem, Miss Tia. Tia, Hal's right, I'm a spirit that's only good for killing. No, it's not that I'm only good for killing. I'm a spirit that only thinks about killing. That's how I became this trash that got most of her power stolen, left with nothing but the thought of killing. During those days, there were many times when Tia would say dangerous things. He never thought that they were her true feelings, but every now and then she did show that sort of great spirit part of her on her vicious face. But now, all she had left in her was envy. Tia. If I get the light sphere back, I will go back to being a spirit that can only think about killing. I'll have to kill Rem, Sue, Hal, the townspeople, everyone. So I can't live with you all. So this is the end. This is it. Rem. No, Miss Tia, can't WEDO something about it? Tia. Tia shook her head at Rem, who clung to her. Rem, becoming teary-eyed, looks back at Subaru and Halibal. However, Subaru had no words for her sorrow. Halibal had his eyes closed and was grinding on the kaisru in his mouth with his teeth, feeling sorry for his own powerlessness. No one could do something for Tia. And even if Tia were to give up on the light gem, the Avenger is already set on going after Subaru. And so, Tia, I will get the light sphere back. I won't give up no matter what. Rem. With Tia's very determined declaration, Rem grew weak and sank down on the spot. Tia looks down in a bit of a sad way, and she closed her eyes tight. After that, she gently put her hand to Rem's large stomach as she said, Tia, sorry to have kept you waiting. She says those few words as she rubbed Rem's stomach. That was the only thing she did. An action that meant nothing at all. Right after he had that thought, Rem's expression changed. Rem put her hand on her own stomach, and she quietly let out a huh in a broken voice. Rem. What did you just do, Miss Tia? Tia. Time's up, Rem, that's it for our promise. Although maybe there never was any promise since this was my mistake. Tia murmurs self-deprecatingly, and Rem slowly crouched down in front of her. Seeing her hold onto her stomach that had been rubbed by Tia, Subaru jumps at Rem with a pale face. Subaru. Rem, are you all right? Hey, Tia, what did you do to Rem? Tia. I just rubbed it, it's the truth. But now that the shackles for Rem's mind are off, the child has realized that everything's ready. Although nobody had known about Tia's involvement, even Subaru understood what had just happened. Composure fades from Rem's facial expression, and she starts to breath a bit heavily. Her face clearly enduring pain and her holding onto her own baby belly meant that Subaru. She's going into labor. Tia. Until the child is born, I can't lay a hand on her. That was our promise. Subaru's eyes open wide, realizing that the time has finally come. In front of him, Tia tilted her head at Rem as she said, Tia. Because we had that promise, I delayed this moment for as long as I could. Both the mother and the child were way too stubborn. Rem. Miss Tia. Rem tried to stop Tia, who started to step back with a smile. However, her stomach pain didn't let her, and Tia distanced herself without her fingers ever reaching her. Tia, who jumped back lightly, opens the sliding door, and then she ran out to the garden. Subaru. Tia. Tia. I'll deal with my unfinished business myself. If I fail, Mr. Hal, you know what to do. Tia looked back in the middle of the garden and said that with a smile on her face. Hearing what sounded like one's last words, Halibal curled his laps, as he was trusted with the matters to follow when his name was called. Halibal, it makes no sense for you to take a battle when you know you have slim chances of winning. You didn't say anything about wanting help, either. Is this the pride of a great spirit or something? Tia, it's nothing big like that. I'm strong, and I don't plan on losing. Tia responded to Halibal's comments like that with a refreshing smile. After that, Tia finally looked at Subaru and then at Rem. Subaru, how should I put this? This isn't very like you. Rem, Miss Tia. Tia, about that day, I'm sorry. That was my fault. Tia awkwardly apologized to Rem while scratching her cheek with her finger. She said nothing more than that, and yet she looked even more nervous than when she revealed the truth about herself. And then, after saying that, Tia added one comment with a bright expression. Tia, a kid, give birth to an energetic one, a very energetic one. Right after Tia said that, a wind surrounded her. It was not a raging wind. It gently wrapped Tia, who was in the middle of the garden, and it urged her towards the sky. They had no time to stop her. Tia got on the wind, and she rose at once. And then, Rem reached her hand out for Tia, for her friend as she faded away, and she desperately strained his voice. It wouldn't reach her. Neither her voice nor her hand reached Tia while she faded into the sky approaching night. Rem, Miss Tia. Subaru. Tia. Subaru called Tia's name as she faded into the sky instead of Rem, whose voice died as it cracked. Still, Tia didn't look back. She didn't stop either. Then, Tia steadily went up in the sky, going out of their sights. The wind blowing against the garden, against the house, against Subaru and the others died out. This meant that Tia went far away, so far away that she couldn't be interfered with at all. Subaru, damn it, that fool. Rem, Subaru, Subaru. I know, Rem, I know how you feel, but I want to chase Tia. He understood those feelings of hers so much that it hurt. However, there was something more important to deal with right now. He'd bring Rem to the clinic. Rem, AHKU. When that crossed his mind, serious pain went across Rem's face. Subaru, with both of his hands, lifted Rem, who panted because of the endless waves of the pain of birth. Subaru, Mr. Hal, please take care of all that stuff. Halibal, got it, leave it to me. It was an unspecific instruction that was far too vague. However, Halibal accepted it without putting in any objection, and he disappeared as if melding into the shadows. He needed to tell the old magic user about the situation before bringing Rem to the clinic. On top of that, there were mountains of things he wanted Halibal to do. Subaru, Rem, I'll take you to the clinic as soon as possible. Please trust me with both of your lives. Rem nods deeply in Subaru's arms, and then he slowly stepped outside. Under the variegated sky approaching night mixed with blue and orange, Subaru ran as fast as he could with his pregnant wife in his arms. Now, just for now, he thought only about Rem and ran along the road to the clinic. Without realizing that, in a sense, this was another form of running away. Interlude. Death Anniversary 1. What erupted when she found that women were flames of unbearable rage. Before the Avenger became an Avenger, she had lived in a village where strays gathered. Anis are a race species. Rumors have it that their scarce kind created a hidden village somewhere, barely scraping by, but that was not the case for her. When she was born, it was a child and her parent, and after her mother died, she had nothing but her own life. The place this girl arrived at was a village where strays gathered. Demi-humans with baggage and people who committed crime and left human villages lived there. Not many decent people lived there. Because of that, she didn't get rejected, as she was a high and proud Oni, and was accepted as a member of the village, allowed to live on. As someone that had never lived with anyone other than her mother, life at the village was full of confusing things. Although the villagers were not good people, everyone had their own circumstances and anguish to deal with. Nobody intentionally acted cold to her. Once time went by, even she was able to make friends before long. She was no longer confused with life at the village, had a set way she went about her days, and accepted these ordinary but peaceful times. The girl went ahead and thought that this was like a sort of blessing. She had never seen what a blessing actually is. It might have been a misunderstanding, but still, she was glad. It was when she had these sort of thoughts that they all disappeared in a scene of flames. The village she was familiar with was engulfed in flames, cruelly burning down. The neighbor who would always greet her, the young man who taught her how to grow crops, the elderly who was kind to her now, someone of the same sex that she'd talked to for the first time just yesterday, the man she'd been talking with frequently as of late, everyone burned. She survived only because she got lucky. But did she really get lucky? Could it be that she'd survived because she didn't have the best luck? She brings out her horn, and it releases abominable power. Mana running through her body, she goes on a rampage to get rid of those who casted flames on the village. However, it wasn't enough. She gets overpowered by sheer numbers, and her body burns in flames. They loudly laugh at her for screaming from the pain and despair, and she gets crushed by their feet. Stranger, not too bad, I'd say. That's the kind of glare that I like. She heard a shrill voice nearby. They stood next to her, and she poured something disgusting into her while she was down on the ground. It wasn't her body that rejected it. Her soul rejected it. She let out a shriek. They wouldn't listen. Something slipped into her ears and was going into her body. Her insides get violated with moisture. Stranger, work's all done. Now, bastard, what do you like about me? The voice of a crazy, insane woman who wasn't okay in the head goes inside her ears, and it wouldn't go away. It wouldn't go away. It just wouldn't. She gets tormented endlessly by the fear of going crazy at any moment. It was only when the villages, flames, and those people were gone that it finally disappeared. But her nose was still trying to find out where they went so that she could go after them. The thing that was poured into her, the shock that violently went through her sniffs out their location. Stranger. I will punish them. She swears that in the face of the scorched village and became an avenger. Now that she was an avenger, she needed the power she lacked in order to do an avenger's job. To obtain it, she did something rash that put her life in danger. She snuck into a great spirit's nest, a place people went to impelled by their own insanity, just like she was. She wanted the power to kill them, the power to punish them, the power to slaughter them. The blowing wind was turning her party into a pool of blood like a blade. Using a corpse as a shield, the Avenger ventured inside. Whenever the shield became ineffective, she used a different corpse. She repeated that. Before she knew it, the wind started sounding like a song to the Avenger. The Great Spirit's nest lies deep within the cave. Somehow, the cave played the sound of Mother Nature, along with the wind coming from its deepest part, and the song playing really wrung the heart. The Avenger was enchanted by the wind's song, and she moved further in while being in a trance. She wanted power. She wanted to hear the rest of the song. This cave had everything the Avenger wanted. And then, when the Avenger reached the deepest part of it, she heard a voice. Stranger. I want to kill everyone. She remembered replying, I do too, to that voice. To Stranger. I want to kill, I want to kill, I want to kill, I want to kill, I want to kill. The power the Avenger took in was endlessly pouring that intention into her. Originally, it should have been a thirst for death that would make you go crazy, a torrent of bloodthirst, an impulse to destroy. However, it went well with the Avenger's wish. It was even like a pleasant singing voice. Thus, the Avenger demonstrated her power for retribution with joy. She absolutely destroyed those who got caught by her sense of smell. There was nothing left of them. They couldn't even be buried in a grave. It was the same as disappearing without a trace. And so, the Avenger achieved retribution again and again, until finally she'd reached a large town. On the street at night, the Avenger went after the lingering scent that her nose strongly reacted to, and she ran through an alley with an insane smile on her face. Her destination was close, right nearby. This was her biggest target thus far. Maybe this was the target for the Avenger. She got excited over the possibility that this might be the one who had that scornful laugh. A black wind blows. Whenever that spread, people would recede out of fear. The target didn't sense her with the wind. She waits at the end of the path the target walks on, looking forward to their face twitching in fear. An enemy with an extremely unpleasant, strong miasma appeared in front of the Avenger. She saw their face, but unfortunately it wasn't familiar to her. Doesn't matter. She was still going to kill them. With that sole thought on her mind, the Avenger adds bloodlust to the wind and starts to bite her target whole, Stranger. A girl next to the enemy getting close to them caught her attention. Somehow, at a glance, the Avenger realized that this was a girl who had the same blood flowing through her as she did. For a moment, she's taken aback by the girl standing to protect the enemy beside her. And then, once the Avenger's stiffness was gone, thick, dark anger violently ate away her mind. What is she doing there? That man is an enemy who should be punished. Why is someone of the same position, same blood, and same race with that man without punishing him? Stranger, what are you doing? In anger, her voice comes out. It was not an intent to kill that came out, but a question. Hearing that question, the girl did not choose to protect the Avenger, but the frightened enemy, so her answer was clear. The neighbor, the young one, the elderly, the person of the same sex. The man who had hoped to bond, she was going to protect the enemy that burned her happiness. Someone of the same blood, loving a man so happily. In that case, Stranger. Die. Killing this girl will increase her self-esteem. And so, after experiencing failure twice, the Avenger now had the right to face retribution for the third time. Stranger. Damn it! It was a white-clothed woman who let out a cry of pain, hit the wall, and collapsed. That forced voice sounded familiar. Of course it did. Inside the Avenger's cranium, a voice was still endlessly telling her to kill. The voices were the same, the voice was the same, and yet it was too fragile. It desired something else. They weren't in agreement. That's why it was repelled. This wasn't the power the Avenger wanted. It was something foreign, and it was too fragile. Humbly saying that it wanted to become one would have been fine, but it was too fragile to do something like loudly tell her to obey. Stranger, die! Thus, she demonstrated her power. She completely beat up the entity and reached for its core. Stranger, ah, ooh, ah! Lifted by the collar, the woman moaned with her body. She squirmed and tried to escape from her arms, but she wouldn't let go. Then, the woman's existence slowly turned into light dust, and it was taken in by the Avenger. Originally, the woman's existence had been a part of the power the Avenger took in. She held down the entity that had parted from her once before, making it hers for good this time. Stranger. E.M. It sounded like the girl said someone's name the moment she disappeared. However, the Avenger didn't hear it, and she gets scattered by the blowing wind, vanishing. The nuisance was gone, and her power was complete. She wasn't missing anything anymore. Stranger, die! Now all that's left is to achieve retribution. An Avenger carrying out her revenge, with that woman's death. Stranger, that woman is the one who's wrong. That woman is crazy for protecting the enemy that ought to be punished. The enemy with the scent of the witch and her abominable kind that got close to him. Kill both of them. Both of them have to be killed. Kill them. Killing is the only thing that can comfort her for what she'd lost. This will be atonement. This isn't hatred, it's a duty. Because of this sense of duty, that woman must die. Chapter 6. The last month of pregnancy, the old magic user looked at Rem, who was brought into the clinic, and made a very unpleasant look with his pale face. Doctor, is it really possible for the breaks to be this short right off the bat? What's going on? Rem. How? The old magic user put his hand on Rem's stomach as she breathed with difficulty, and he mentions how short the intervals of pain were. The old magic user clicked his tongue at Subaru, who was only confused by his point, and said, Doctor. Normally, the breaks between the pain during birth are long. It's a sign that the baby will be born, though the pace will pick up little by little. But your wife's reactions are odd. Hey, go call her over. The old magic user raises his voice in the middle of his explanation, and he shouts at the helper to call over the midwife. Meanwhile, the old magic user left the room in a hurry, and tension was starting to fill up the whole clinic. Rem, Subaru, Rem, are you all right? Of course you aren't. Damn it, damn it, I'll be here for you. Subaru gets angry at himself for being unable to say anything useful, and he spoke to Rem as he held her hand. Rem held his hand back so tight that it made him feel pain, but it wasn't nearly as much as the amount of pain she was feeling. Subaru seriously thought to himself, if crushing his hand would comfort Rem, then she can go ahead and do it. Rem, I won't do that. It's my husband's precious hand, after all. Reading Subaru's inner thoughts, Rem slightly smiled. The way she was clearly pretending to be tough made Subaru choke up. Subaru was the one who had to do everything he could, say everything he could to comfort Rem. So why was Subaru being taken care of by Rem? Rem, Miss Tia, Subaru. Rem, don't think about Tia right now. Focus on yourself. Rem, that's not it. Miss Tia said this before, right? That the baby inside my belly is trying to come out now because the shackles of my mind have been removed. Subaru. She did say that? Hearing Rem saying that falteringly, Subaru looks back on what Tia had said just before she bid her farewell. The deadline of the promise made between Rem and Tia. Until the child is born, Tia wouldn't do anything to Rem and would quietly watch for any slip-ups. It was actually a pointless promise and a misunderstanding by Tia, though. Rem. Then, the promise became pointless, and so now, the baby is finally coming out. Subaru. You might not believe me on this, but that's just a coincidence. The events just happened to occur at the same time. It's nothing to stress out about. It may be possible for one's condition to be affected by the mind. However, it's quite unlikely for that to even affect the timing of birth. It is true that Rem giving birth happened later than the magic user had predicted. However, giving birth isn't so simple that you could just repress it through sheer will. Rem, it does stress me out because Subaru, what is it? Tell me anything. Right now I'll listen to anything you have to say. Rem, I was scared. I was scared of the child being born. Rem held Subaru's hand tight, extremely tight, and said that while tearing up. When Subaru's breath was taken away by her words, Rem closed her eyes tight again, and she continued to shed tears. Rem, I was so happy that you were glad that we have a baby. I really was. I was really happy. But I was really scared. Because, Subaru. Rem. Because I wasn't able to be a good child when I was one myself. I let my parents down, and the villagers thought I was a hopeless child. Uncontrollable tears trickled down rapidly from Rem's eyes. And Subaru couldn't even wipe them away, as he was captivated by the beautiful, sparkling teardrops. She was unable to be a good kid. That regret binded Rem's mind with anxiety. Rem. Despite all that, I have a child, and I was so worried I couldn't stop being worried. Being a good child, a good little sister. I couldn't be either of those, and I wondered, could I really be a parent? Subaru. Rem. I didn't want to part with Miss Tia. I thought that, if there hadn't been a deadline, we would have spent our days at the tenement house like that forever and ever. But I was wrong. Rem shakes her head disapprovingly and reveals the piled-up inner thoughts she had kept hidden, as if she was punishing herself for being far too sinful. Rem, I was scared of becoming a parent. I was scared of meeting face to face with a child. I was actually scared this whole time. I thought I couldn't be a good parent. Subaru. Rem, because I've always disappointed all the precious people around me. Rem breathes heavily, and her face is red from agitation and grief. Using the hand that wasn't holding onto Subaru's, Rem wipes her face that had tears trickling down on it, and then covered it with her arm. Rem's heartbreaking outburst hits Subaru, and it was tearing his heart into shreds. It was a very intense, a very natural, and a very sad outburst. Subaru. Subaru swallows his saliva and, choosing his next words, throws his brain into chaos. What should he say? He didn't know the answer. Sorry for making you worry. Sorry for not picking up on your worries. Criticize her by saying, don't be so pathetic. None of them seemed correct, because Rem revealed what she felt deep down. She made up her mind to reveal that she was hated and disappointed others. That's right. Rem said that she has always disappointed those who were precious to her. She confessed after she decided to make Subaru reveal his own true feelings. And so, after that confession, what did he think? Was he actually disappointed by Rem? Subaru. Rem, who had her name called for a moment, shakes with her face covered. Birth pains and probably disappointment with herself were tormenting her chest. Her mind was a mess, no doubt about it. Subaru was also worrying about what to say in this situation, right here, right now. So Subaru held Rem's hand, and with his other hand patted her head as he said, Subaru, I understand how you feel. I really do. Rem, Subaru. Rem slowly raised her arms, as if she was surprised by the gentleness of Subaru's tone. Just how pathetic did Subaru look in her eyes? Rem's worry truly was the same as Subaru's, as if they were mirroring each other. Subaru. You see, I'm the same way. No, I was even worse. I wasn't able to be a good kid. I couldn't look my dad or my mom in the face either. Rem. Subaru. They were such great parents. My dad and my mom really were the greatest parents in the world. They loved each other, were nice to me, told me that they loved me. Just like Rem did, Subaru started talking about himself as the tears trickled down. He's lived with Rem for 1.5 years and was summoned to this world just under 2 years ago. In all that time, Subaru had never spoken about his past to anyone, not even once, because it was related to the memories Subaru never wanted to reveal. And they were in this precious place that was so wonderful and beautiful to Subaru that he was scared to even touch it. Subaru looked up to his parents. From the bottom of his heart, he felt sorry that he had to be their child. His parents were so kind, strict, gave him joy, sadness, anger, gifts, and yet their failure of a son couldn't give anything back. It was truly pathetic. How could Natsuki Subaru, someone who was raised by such good parents and still couldn't be a good son, become a parent? That's what he was afraid of this whole time, Subaru. But I can't show you that I am. I brought you with me. I'm the one who brought you with me. I wanted to give you everything I had to make you happy. I told myself that I had to do it. That's why he hid his anxiety and eagerly waited for this day to come. He worked hard at his job, devoted himself to supporting Rem, and tried his best to be a good husband. Believing that if he tried to be good husband, in the future he could become a good father too. Subaru. But it wasn't that simple. Of course it wasn't. I'm going to be someone's parent, you know. I can't just get the right answers by thinking logically. So I'm still. At the last minute, he threw everything out there, as if to repent his ignorance of Rem's anxiety. Subaru and Rem both knew that neither of them were perfect, and they were afraid of whether they'd be able to fulfill their responsibilities as parents for the child that was on the way. They were scared. So scared. And they were even scared of confessing that they were scared. But Rem, Subaru, do you regret it? After listening to his confession, Rem broke the silence by asking Subaru a question. Subaru impulsively lifted his head, and he looked straight at Rem's eyes that were right there. Her light blue eyes were switching between despair and grief and were staring at Subaru. Inside her baby belly, there was their child. Labor pains have already started, and birth was just around the corner. With all that happening, she had this confession. Did he want this child to be born? Subaru. Subaru knew that Rem's eyes were asking him that, and he rubbed his eyes hard. He wasn't clear enough. Subaru made it this far regretting his lack of clarity, regretting his lack of action, running away from the problems before him, and going to the more comfortable path, to the less painful path. He made it this far by running away from his parents, running away from reality, running away from initiating into this world, running away from his promise that he made, running away from those who were precious to him, and running away from the fear of losing what he had. Did he run and run and run and come this far just to lose everything? Subaru, that's not it. Rem, I don't regret it. I've been saved. Rem, Subaru, I've always been running. I threw away everything and ran away with you. But when I heard that we had a child, I was happy, and that's when I was saved. Even after running and running with my back turned, there was something I could have. And that was our child. He was worried. He couldn't lie. Subaru, as someone who couldn't look at his parents in the face, always had a fear of becoming a parent. He still does. It wasn't gone. It probably would never go away. But at the same time, Subaru knew something. He knew the love of the best role model parents in the whole world. Subaru. I was a terrible son. I wasn't able to be a good kid. But I had the best parents in the whole world. I know I had the best parents, and I know I was the worst child ever too. So no matter what happens, I'll love our child. Rem, Subaru, my parents loved a hopeless failure like me. I know that, I do. That's why I'll be able to love my own child, love my family. In Subaru's mind, he saw their smiles, copying his father and his mother. He smiled. He threw his chest out with confidence, bragged that he knew the best role models and was proud. Natsuki Subaru was raised by the world's best parents, the world's best role models, for 17 years. Rem. After Subaru declared that with a smile, Rem was speechless. Her teary eyes open wide, her red face becomes even more red, and her facial expression slowly changes. The overflowing tears turned into just one teardrop, and with a slight smile Rem said, Rem, you're fanatical like an Oni. Then, with the same smile from that one moment, she said an awfully nostalgic line to Subaru. Did Subaru nod back at that smile with the same smile he had on that day? Then came Doctor. The midwife's here. Birth preparations will begin. Get out. Go pray. The old magic user came back to the clinic room with a middle-aged woman. Subaru thought the timing was too perfect, but the old magic user had his usual sour look, so he couldn't tell what he was thinking. Anyhow, it was time. Subaru looked back at Rem and took her hand once again as he said, Subaru, Rem, all these feelings I've let out are the truth. Please believe me. Rem, I'll always believe Subaru. Subaru, oh, that's right. The helper who came in quickly brings in the necessary tools into the room. The midwife gives instructions for what to do with them, and the old magic user jerked his chin at Subaru with a stern look. He was telling him to get out. Subaru, I can't stay for its birth. Doctor, you really think men staying here would be helpful? Everyone I've called over are women, including the midwife and the helper. I'm here just in case, but in this situation even I'm just a figurehead. The old magic user snorted to drop him a hint that he didn't need to do anything. He felt like his continuously blunt attitude was telling him that he trying to be more helpful than needed. Subaru, Doctor, please take care of Rem. Doctor, tell that to the midwife. He was waved at perfunctorily, and he gave a wry smile. After that, now was when he let go of Rem's hand as he said, Subaru, Rem, I'll be waiting. My wife and kid are in your hands. Rem, yes, your Rem's got this, Subaru. About Miss Tia, Subaru. I know. Hearing the words she added on with a smile, Subaru nodded to indicate that she didn't have to continue. Rem sees that, and after she closed her eyes approvingly, starts to breath heavily. A fight only Rem could face was going to begin. Stranger. Get out! The midwife speaks to him, and Subaru was forced to leave the clinic room. When he was about to leave the room, he heard Rem's cries of pain. Her long, long fight was beginning. The truth is that Subaru wanted to watch over her fight outside the clinic room too, but Halibal. Just as Subaru appeared at the aisle, Halibal spoke to him. He'd been planning this, and that after he informed the clinic that Rem was going into labor. He was also the one person who understood the situation besides Subaru and Rem. Halibal. How's Rem? Subaru. She's at the stage where birth really begins. They said that men will get in the way and kicked me out. I really am useless in situations like these. Halibal. That includes me too. It's Rem's job and her job only. Also, we've got our own things we need to do. Sue, you know that too, don't you? Subaru gave a wry smile, and then said yeah to reassure Halibal, who lowered the tone of his voice. With the expression Halibal had, and above all, with what had happened just before, he could imagine what he was talking about. Subaru. The person who stole Tia's power is coming to town to kill me. What about Tia? Halibal. Look at this. To answer Subaru's question, Halibal took out something from his kimono's sleeve. At first, this thing knitted with black thread looked like something you'd wear around your arm. Then, he had an idea. Subaru. That good luck bracelet is something you gave to Tia. Halibal. Good luck bracelets are magic items because of the black braiding. I'll be skipping the details on how it's made, but 2 of these make a whole magical item, and if something ever happens to the owner, as Halibal spoke, he shook the black braids. It snapped while he did it. Subaru. Which means that Tia, Halibal, she lost a fight she picked herself. Even she knew that she had a low chance of winning. She realized it when she was about to leave it up to me to finish the job. What a ridiculous girl. Halibal put the snapped braids into his pocket and laughed loudly with his fangs showing. It probably seemed sad somehow because he was mourning Tia in his own way. And so he took out his kaisru instead of the black beads, put it to his mouth and lit it. Halibal. I'm going to take care of Tia's request. Subaru. I know. Subaru interrupted Halibal and answered, just like how he did when he to Rem. Subaru's eyes lit up with determination and readiness, and then said this. Subaru, there's no running away anymore. To Halibal, about that girl, let's call her the enemy. About the enemy, she was outside of the town. I sort of tried getting a hit on her, but that wasn't a good idea. Doing it half-heartedly would just lead to more death. That was Halibal's opinion as he lit his kaisru. After that, Subaru racked his brains with a serious look, and he tilted his head as he said, A hit. Subaru. By a hit, do you mean that you got in a fight? You fought? Halibal. If I did, don't you think I would have gotten hurt? By I meant my team. Or in your words, I used a shinobi squad. Subaru. So shinobi squads do exist. You really are a leader. You said they didn't exist. Halibal. A shinobi can't leak his secrets, you know. Nothing wrong with that, is there? Halibal tells Subaru, who wouldn't let the issue go, to calm down as he put his hand on his forehead. In this situation, he didn't have the time to ask about hidden shinobi villages in Kararagi in detail. The information Halibal gathered and a plan were what were important. Halibal, she looks just like Tia, but her skin is clearly black. We can stop her by attacking with a bunch of stalling tactics, but that won't work for long. What should we do? Subaru. What would you do? Do you have some sort of idea in mind? Halibal. The simplest method would be to confine you outside town, and then accomplish our goal. Halibal put up his finger and presented the most reliable and simple plan possible. However, before Subaru could say something, Halibal bent the finger he had held up as he said, Halibal. But that's not an option. I wouldn't want to lose a friend, and I'd feel terrible if I let Rem's husband die and left her child on the way without a parent. Plus, it goes against my promise with Tia. Subaru. You sure do have a strong sense of duty. For a playboy, that is. Halibel, you can't play without rules. So an eternal playboy also has to stick to the rules that go with playing. Halibel responded to Subaru's joke with a joke of his own, and he shrugged. That gesture makes Subaru break into a smile, and he slapped his cheeks out of relief that he didn't have to worry about being sacrificed for now. Subaru, let's discuss a little more. What do you know about Zerstia, Halibel? I told you most of it at the house. She's said to be one of the 4 great spirits, a murdering spirit, a phantom slasher, the most beautiful Shinigami, and she always sleeping in her nest in the west side of Kararagi. Sometimes she cuts up those who come into her bed. Also, she might have an old song. Subaru, an old song? When he raised an eyebrow at the unexpected word, Halibel said yes as he nodded deeply. Halibel, I don't know the details, but those who know it will recognize it. If I remember correctly, what was it again? It's like a lullaby. Subaru, the song of the wind, the lullaby of the wind. Halibel, oh, that's it. Sue, I'm surprised you knew, even though you're not even a Kararajan. Subaru, well, of course I do. What kind of people do you think I'm surrounded with every day at work? Subaru responded to Halibel, who acted impressed, and inside he was grateful for the nosiness of the ladies he worked with at the Magoji Palace. Those ladies were the ones who taught Subaru, as he was going to become a dad soon, from general housework to babysitting. Among the things he learned, there was a song called The Lullaby of the Wind. It was something that sung the story of when people defeated a certain large beast during ancient times. Subaru, Mr. Hal, you mentioned stalling tactics, right? How long can we stop her for? Halibel, with sacrifices, half a day. Without sacrifices, 6 hours. Although Halibel hesitated for a moment, he looked into Subaru's eyes and gave that answer. He did it because, right now, there was strong determination in Subaru's eyes. He thought about the lullaby of the wind, all of his enemies, Tia, and then came up with one idea. He was going to need time, money, and help. And then there also was Subaru. I'll have to go around with my head down, ready to live to return favors for the rest of my life. 3, she waves her hand, conjuring wind. A slaughterous wind that cut up everything and turned things into dust. Stranger. Die, a brief order, then quick execution. In less than a second, the bite attack flew and devoured the sky. A flash went through the sky, and steel was repelled by the wind that was following it. Throws delayed her, attacking her from all directions nonstop. It was depressing. The wind repelled the steel. No matter how many times she was attacked, it didn't matter. Stranger, die! She attacked her opponent who threw steel with wind. The effect was unclear. This was one of the flaws with the wind. The flurry of wind would turn into fangs and fade away after opening a space. She had to see the result for herself. However, it was currently night time. The surrounding enemies were elusive and innately skilled at lurking in the darkness. Stranger, die! It was impossible to tell if any of the flurries of wind caught the black shadow. Even if they hit, they didn't even let out cries of pain and act shamelessly when they died. They were horrible enemies in every way. Stranger, kill, 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 kill. I hear a voice in my head. I know, I feel the same way. I want to kill everything. But before that, I have to kill someone. There's an enemy who needs to be punished. I sense their presence with my nose. I know where they are, but the dark shadows are getting in the way. Stranger. Suddenly, in her vision of hatred, she saw the black shadows move altogether. Her eyes opened wide, wondering what this was all about, and then all the presences surrounding her started to disappear, as if the wind had scattered them. They withdrew, suddenly, without any changes in the situation. She thinks about what happened, about what they were doing. Her instincts were telling her to take this lucky chance to go towards the witch scent. However, if this is a trap or a plot, jumping into this would be the height of stupidity. What are you thinking? You have the power to scatter them now. The differing conclusions in her mind and her heart collide with each other. I want to kill them. I should kill them carefully. While they kept fighting each other, she came to the conclusion that she should settle down stranger. The next moment, she was disgusted by a foul, strong stench. Her eyes opened wide, and the stench that reached her via the wind makes her nose react. Without a doubt, This wafting stench, which slipped into her nose even if she didn't want it to, was an evil scent, the witch's scent, a miasma that needed to be punished. The smell was quickly getting stronger. Her senses and instincts cheer her on, and so she blasted the ground with the bottom of her foot. Stranger, kill, 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 kill. Stranger, die, 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 die. The cheer in her skull and her own cheer overlap. She jumped on the ground lightly and went after her target. She went into town, smashed roof tiles, jumped over buildings, and went deeper and deeper until finally, Subaru. About your face! She landed with her limbs and looked up. In front of her, there was a man standing in a blue dress, a stench that pierced her sense of smell and disgusted her nose and mind. The face with the witch's scent that she'd seen before, the evil face that had cowered in fear and trembled as it was hunted, was smiling in a very provocative manner. And then Subaru. It's cuter when you smile, almost as cute as my wife and my child. Stranger, die! She was greeted with a spiteful smile, and her bloodlust makes her strike. The wind goes straight towards the man standing upright, and it scraped off his existence from the earth along with his stench, or at least, it should have. Hallible, unfortunately, I won't let you do that. Stranger. With that flat voice, all of the flurries of wind came to nothing. The winds were shot down by steel thrown from the darkness. Wind arose where the enemy wasn't, and the man opened his arms, unharmed. It was like he was saying that he was the one who did this. Stranger. D! Inexcusable. She conjured even more wind, let her increase in bloodlust control her, and struck with her power. She produces a blast. The ground was gouged out roundly, as if to draw a circle in the middle of the explosion. However, the man wasn't inside of the damage. Neither was the demi-human who interfered with by throwing things. She looked up. She stepped onto the roof tiles, and on top of the building there was a man. He was being carried by a demi-human on his shoulder, and he was trying to run. I won't let you get away. I want to kill you, like I'd let you get away. I want to kill you. Stranger, die! She chased after the stench and the demi-human, running away while the night approached dawn, jumping and running through the streets. It becomes wind. She attacks with wind, swirls wind, rides wind, and stranger. Inside the wind, a different smell was mixed with the stench, and her body was having a strong reaction to it. This was a person's smell, and a strong one at that. There were a lot of people. A premise. She sees a premise down there. The man and the demi-human fled into it. People's presences, a stench that has another stench. She was very hesitant about going in, but the man was in there. Retribution was in there. Subaru. I can return by stranger. After that inaudible utterance, her instincts went wild from the stench that became tremendously strong. Her cautiousness was blown away along with her reason. When she stepped in, she jumped towards the sky and looked for the demi-human running through the garden. She aimed at him and the man he was carrying on his shoulders and attacked with absolutely unavoidable wind from all sides. Hallible. Sorry, Sue. Sensing that the inescape wind coming close, the demi-human yelled right before it trapped them. He grabbed onto the body of the man on his shoulders and threw him as hard as he could. The man's body went through a gap in the wind and escaped its cutting range. However, that wasn't going to happen for the demi-human that was left behind. Stranger, die! The wind cruelly cuts up the demi-human, who closed his fingers and was left inside. The demi-human died. She starts to feel joy from killing him, and at the same time realizes that this wasn't over yet. The man had been thrown into the sky. She jumped towards it and opened her arms. Let's tear his body limb from limb, take his remains, and bring them to her. Let's teach this woman who gave birth and snuggled up to the sinful enemy a lesson. This is revenge. This is retribution. This is atonement for their blood. This is revenge for having the happiness that I was never able to have. Stranger. D. Subaru. Now, when her hatred and joy crossed each other and she tried to strike with death, the source of the stench shouted, Subaru, ready, go! Right after that, she sensed that something was being thrown at her from all directions. At the edge of her vision, she saw something that looked like an unfolded cloth. It was thrown at her. Stranger. Think, the stench is right before me. I can reach him and kill him. But if I prioritize that, the thrown unfolded cloth will reach me. I can still get away from it. I can conjure wind, get on it, and foil the enemy's plan. Stranger. That's right. No need to panic. Do what's safe. There's no need to go with the enemy's plan, stranger. Kill, 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 kill. Control the thirst for death that keeps echoing in your head, and you'll get out of this situation. Listen to me just this once. If you do, you'll be able to quench your thirst, stranger. I want to kill, but I can't. Stranger, stranger, because I don't want Rem to hate me. Something inside her said that in the same voice that was telling her to kill. Her hands and legs freeze. She couldn't move. She couldn't run or kill. Stranger. Dee! Stranger. I can't get enough of that scream. When she heard a very cruel voice, her body was also hit by something that she was unable to dodge. It was the wet cloth. It wrapped around her. It wasn't attacking her. It just wrapped around her over and over. Water, I'm wet. It's not water. This has a sharp smell. Stranger. Then she screamed as if her skull was breaking and the rejection threw her brain into chaos. The entity that should have been shut inside went wild. It couldn't take it anymore, and it tried to come out and escape. Stranger. Her head was aching. Her skull was being torn apart violently from the inside. It was strange pain that went beyond her imagination. She had never experienced this sort of pain. She had never experienced this sort of suffering. She had never imagined this sort of pain. No, 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 no. I don't want to die. It comes off. It came off. The power that made up her body fell apart. She lost the figure that had been the basis for her body, the figure that made her look formidable to demonstrate power, as if melting like ice. Her body shrunk. Her hair color changed. She went from having inhumane beauty to being an ugly village girl. She went from having eccentric power to being a mere incomplete Oni. And so she even lost her power to get revenge, was abandoned by her bloodlust and stranger. Halibal. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. She hears the voice of a demi-human that should have been cut up earlier. She shook off the cloth that was on her. She could now see the black shadows jumping at her. A small blade stabbed a part of her body, the center of her chest. That was the end. For in the palace's garden, he was looking down on a girl that had collapsed. She had a light brown pigtails and an ordinary but charming face. However, she was so pale that it looked like she could faint at any moment, ruining it, and she had awful bags under her eyes. Halibal, her wounds are fatal, and she was hit with a curse that made her unable to get away. Now she's done for. Next to Subaru, there was Halibal looking down on a girl, half naked without his kimono on. Listening to his statement, Subaru knitted his brow and tilted his head as he asked, "A curse, Halibal. I told you before, didn't I? I'm an expert on magic. Killing with curses is my trump card. Stuff like my fur and nails are fused into the kunai I have, so if it gets stolen, it will cast a curse." Subaru. What the hell, that's really dangerous. Is it even okay for you to tell me about this? Halibal. It's totally fine. If you expose it to people, I'll just make you completely disappear. Subaru. That sure is a crazy way to deal with it. Halibal acted relaxed, but Subaru couldn't hide the chills he had from his killing scheme. Sorcery is said to be one of the arts in this world that are branches of magic. Since sorcery is an art that specializes in taking someone's life, there is a rule that the caster must touch his/her opponent, and even Subaru has had experience with this before. Sorcery is very hard to use because of this, but Halibal has solved it by mixing in parts of himself with his weapon. Halibal. On the first night we met, the kunai stabbed her. Her movement slowed down because it was effective. Even while harnessing a great spirit's power, you can't stop the curse from working. Subaru. So she came to kill me before she would die? Halibal. It might be why she rushed things. Honestly, I don't know myself. Shrugging his shoulders, Halibal took his kaisru out of his belly band and put it in his mouth. It seemed that he had no intentions of being involved with what was going to happen now. He was being both kind and strict. Subaru took a deep breath and then looked into the face of the girl who was on the verge of death. Stranger. Slowly, her eyes opened as if she had felt his presence. They were light blue eyes. That common feature made Subaru feel some unnecessary guilt. However, he didn't stop. Subaru. It was a mistake for you to go after me. I have nothing to do with the witch cult, but I can see why you still couldn't stop. Stranger. Subaru. I won't ask you to forgive me. I'd like to, but there'd be no use in asking. I won't tell you to not hate me, so go ahead and hate me. But I'd like you to hate just me. He didn't want her to hate his child that was being born, and of course, not Rem either. That also went for Halibal and the other people who helped him out. In this situation, it was Natsuki Subaru who thought about killing her, made a plan, and carried it out. It was Natsuki Subaru who wished to kill her. It was him who filled her with hatred until the very end. Subaru. My name is Natsuki Subaru. That is the name of the man who killed you. Stranger. Subaru. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Even though I told you that you didn't have to forgive me, I'm sorry for apologizing. Ideally, he would listen to no complaints if possible. The dying girl would be left with no regrets, and he'd take her life. However, that didn't happen, and Subaru was being a helpless wimp faced with death. Death is scary. Death is not salvation. Subaru knew that. Subaru knew death better than anyone in this world, so he felt very bad for the girl. Subaru, I have a child on the way. Rem is doing her best. I'm going to be a father, so I couldn't die. I'm sorry. That's why I killed you. They were nothing but selfish excuses. And if their views became so conflicted that they decided to kill each other, there would be no time to understand one another. Subaru's words weren't going to comfort her or enlighten her. In response to Subaru's words, the girl stopped her distressed breathing for a moment and said, Stranger. Subaru. Stranger, I hate that girl. The girl said that in a voice full of hatred, as if she was coughing up blood, as if she was looking into heaven from hell. Subaru immediately realized that she was talking about Rem. He realized it, but that realization made things inconsistent. She should have been going after the witch's scent. That's how they came up with the plan to use Subaru as a bait. All of her hatred should have been directed towards Subaru. Stranger, that girl has everything. I want everything. Subaru. That's stranger. I was going to with him, and yet Tears flow from the girl's eyes. Her eyes were no longer looking at Subaru or at anywhere in this world. They were looking somewhere else. They were looking at a scene with happiness that she yearned for so much, enough to tear her heart out and drive her to get revenge. Happiness that she was supposed to have too. She had that taken away from her, became an avenger, and now she was going to die. What she held on to at the very end were her hatred and jealousy towards Rem, who had the same blood in her veins and reached a kind of life that was different from the one she had. No, it was probably envy. Subaru, what's your name? Stranger. Subaru, what is your name? He asked, crouching down and moving his face close. To his side, Halibal tried to stop him, but Subaru prevented him from doing so with his hand. The girl no longer had the energy to do something to Subaru as he got close. He listened to the girl's last spark of life that was running out even in this moment. Stranger. Subaru. Reese Subaru picked up the name he was quickly told and said that. He didn't have the time to confirm if he was correct. Stranger. Light fades away from the girl's eyes. The girl envied Rem, cursed her fate, and breathed her last. He saw that with his own eyes. No, it was Natsuki Subaru who put an end to her. He'd never forget her name. Subaru would never forget the fact the girl had once lived, that Reese had once lived. He sacrificed Reese to protect himself, to protect his family, to protect his life. And he would never tell anyone what this girl Reese had truly wished for. Subaru, who was hated by her, was going to carry that to his grave, so that neither Rem nor the child on the way would ever find out about it. Subaru. It's over. Halibal. Yeah, it wasn't done in a very satisfying way, though. Upon hearing Subaru's statement mixed with a sigh, Halibal responded while giving out smoke. He helped out with everything for this plan. Because of that, Subaru bowed his head to Halibal. Subaru. Thanks for going with my selfish, uncertain plan. I really appreciate it. Halibal. I was the one who made the final call, and we got her just like you planned, so I have no complaints. The substitution that I hadn't done in a while worked. It all went fairly well. He had said that he wasn't very good at substitution, but in the very end, it worked out. After Halibal let Subaru get away from the girl's max firepower, he used substitution and survived by pulling a classic. Switching with a log. Subaru. That sure showed the finesse of a ninja. Also, Halibal wasn't the only one who helped out with this plan. He had the help of many others. Looking around, this was the Magoji Palace. After preparing a trap, he used the premise to guarantee the necessary space. And that was not the only thing he used. He used people and money too. To prove it, there was Riffin Magoji standing on the veranda of the palace. While touching his mustache, he bowed deeply to Subaru and said, "Riffin, I'm glad that things went according to plan without any problems." Subaru, "I sincerely apologize for the trouble I've caused you, Master." Riffin, "Culture school has only just begun. You still have to guide all these women with your feminine abilities. It's an essential investment. I love investments, you see." He had asked Riffin, who chuckled, to supply the alcohol that was absolutely necessary for the plan on top of providing a place for it. He had used Riffin's name, as he was a brave warrior, to literally gather strong alcohol from the town and get them to bring it all into the palace. Subaru, the lullaby hint and Tia being poor with alcohol. And then there was the overreaction to the cooking alcohol. Those things led to the inference that Zerstia isn't fond of alcohol. The old anecdotes of an entity with extremely strong power drinking excessively and being slain were endless. The lullaby also had details related to that. If there really were existences running rampant in this world that are like the ones in the legends, then it wouldn't necessarily be wrong to act out those legends. A blanket with a large amount of alcohol was actually thrown at the Zerstia that was captured in Reese, and she came out after her body was soaked in alcohol. With Riffin's wealth and reputation and the traditions of the ladies at the palace, he won. Afterwards, the people who helped him with the alcohol-soaking plan, Subaru, Klane's employment agency. Klane, after you said avenging Tia, I had to come too. Also, everyone loved that girl, said Klane, in armor, not an apron, with his large arms folded. He and a lot of other non-regular employees came rushing over when they heard about avenging Tia. If the plan fails, there will be an all-out war with a being that has a great spirit level of power. Even though they had declined at first like that, many people did this for Tia. Klane, and if push came to shove, Hallible would have done something. Hallible, what the heck? You expect way too much from me. Give me a break, man, Hallible said as he shook his head at Klane, who scratched the nose on his lizard face. That behavior makes soft smiles go all around. He had seen a harsh ending. However, having no victims other than the girl was the best conclusion among all the ones he thought of. It was the best one where he didn't lose anything. So all that's left was Hallible. The final payback, huh? Subaru looked up, and Hallible knocked the ash off his kaisru. Riffin firmly sat down at the veranda and picked up the weapons that Klane and the others deployed. A wind slowly comes down towards the palace's garden covered with tension, battle preparations, and caution. Milky white hair, a pure white dress, and a face that had reached inhumane beauty via the hands of God. She had a rude side, which didn't go with the way she looked, and childish parts about her, and was surprisingly friendly and sentimental. It was the girl that had the title of a great spirit, which didn't suit her at all, who everyone here knew. Stranger. Overwhelmed by the presence coming closer, Subaru stopped his feet from stepping back. In his mind, he decided that he wouldn't run away, believing that if he gets away from her, away from Tia, he'd also get away from those boisterous, noisy days of happiness. 5 long ago before the world, before witches and dragons became this and that, I was always free. I enjoyed my freedom without having anyone get in my way. I conjured wind, spread fires, whirled up water, and dug up dirt, doing whatever I wanted. Everyone approved of me. Everyone asked all these favors of me who lived freely. I felt nice and they were well-mannered, so I did their favors. I conjured wind, spread fires, whirled up water, and dug up dirt, doing what they had asked for. After that, everyone was happy. Everyone praised me. Everyone smiled. So my mood got better and better, and I did everyone favors. Of course, sometimes I'd miss being free so much that I wouldn't do their favors, but in most cases, I still helped everyone out whenever I wasn't sleeping. Eventually, everyone started bringing things whenever they asked me for favors. They were things like vegetables, animal meat, sparkly gems, and burnished kimonos. They were all these sort of things that had value. I wasn't really hungry, nor did I have any interest in gems, and the cloth had some unnecessary fur on it, so I wasn't happy with the things they brought. But I appreciated their thoughts, so I decided to work hard. I conjured wind, spread fire, whirled up water, and dug up dirt. That's what I loved to do. By doing what I loved, everyone was happy. So I did it over and over again. However, eventually everyone's favors started to get weird. Even though they were asking for favors, they kept bringing things with them. Before, I was happy doing what I wanted with fire, water, and dirt, but now I was being told what to do. I loved being free. I loved doing what I wanted. But I liked being praised by everyone, and I also liked getting attention. So I reluctantly did everyone's favors. I conjured water, spread fire, whirled up water, and dug up dirt where they wanted me to. Afterwards, everyone was happy again. My mood improved, and I forgave them. Then, a lot of their favors were asking me to do what they told me. Eventually it happened when I was getting used to doing what people told me to. This favor was really weird. They didn't need wind. They didn't need water. They didn't need dirt. What they wanted was fire. I didn't like it. I wanted to start with wind. I didn't want to use just wind. I loved being free. For a very long time, I have always started with wind. I didn't like how they weren't letting me do that. I said no, refusing to do their favor. When I did that, everyone left. I was left alone. I was free. I thought to act freely like before, without caring about anyone. But it was lonely being free. When everyone's gone, I feel lonely, I thought. I went to see everyone. I said, if fire's what they want, I'll give it to them. Everyone was happy. I decided to bring fire, just like everyone asked for. However, fire isn't the only thing I conjured. I snuck in wind. I wanted wind with the spreading of fire, and wind was the one thing I had to have. Wind was my symbol of freedom. There was no water. There was no dirt. There were only wind and fire. Everything became bright red. I was glad that everyone was pleased. After pleasing everyone, they called me over and treated me warmly. I didn't really have any interest in food, dancing, or gifts, but it felt nice having everyone treat me warmly. Also, the water that wasn't actually water was amazing. Water that became hot when you drank it. Water that had a weird smell. The more you drank it, the more you wanted another. I was having a blast, and drank water as recommended by everyone. I drank lots, got sleepy, and then fell asleep at a place that wasn't my nest for the first time. When I woke up, my limbs were gone and my neck was about to get cut off. I had always been free. I had always been free. I enjoyed my freedom. Where did my hand that spread fire go? Where did my tail that whirled up water go? Where did my feet that dug up dirt go? Where did my freedom go? When everyone heard my voice, they yelled with angry looks on their faces. They were yelling. You tell me that fire burned the country, but I don't understand. You tell me that wind made it spread, but I don't care. You shout at me for not putting out the fire with water and dirt, but I don't get it. Where did my freedom go? Why are people mad at me? I said, I want my limbs back. Nobody listened to me. Instead, I was showered with water that smelled weird. It was the water that put me to sleep. The water was on fire. My body was burning. Hot, 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 I screamed. Everyone was happy about it. Everyone was happy that I was burning, like how they were happy when I did what I'd always do. I didn't have the hands to spread fire. I didn't have the tail to grow water. I didn't have the feet to dig up dirt. But I had the head to conjure wind. I had a mouth. I had a tongue. I had fangs. Give me back my freedom. Give back me. Don't laugh at me. I'll kill you. My mind was dyed pitch black. I killed everyone besides myself. I killed everyone who was happy, everyone who was crying, and everyone who was mad. I killed everyone. I killed them and slaughtered them, but I still wanted to kill people. Even though pleasant things happened, I wanted to kill. Even though sad things happened, I wanted to kill. Even if there were things that angered me, I wanted to kill. Even if there were things that bothered me, I wanted to kill. When I became sleepy, I wanted to kill. After I woke up from a dream, I wanted to kill. After wind blew, I wanted to kill. After the sun set, I wanted to kill. Kill, 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 kill. I want to kill everything. My bloodlust was everything to me. I was free, so I wanted to freely kill everything. I will kill. I'm free. The last ones I killed called me a Shinigami. I'm free. Back when everyone was smiling, they told me I was beautiful. I'm free, freer than anyone. I am the most beautiful Shinigami. I am the most beautiful Shinigami, Zerstia. I'm free. I want to kill everything. I want to kill. 6 death is what Natsuki Subaru was feeling. His instincts understood that what had manifested before him was an entity that brought along deep death with her. Subaru. Subaru was scared of death. He was scared of it more than anything. Many people feel the same way. But for Subaru, death didn't have the same meaning as it did for others. Death meant the end. However, for Subaru, death wasn't the end. It was the beginning of hell. Subaru. Since you're in a white dress, should I assume that you are the Tia we know? The girl dressed in white lands while conjuring wind in the middle of the palace garden. She definitely looked like the Tia Subaru knew. Her appearance was exactly the same. The same went for her clothes, the white dress. For some reason, it was black when she became one with Reese, so it was easy to recognize the difference. Subaru, I would appreciate it if you tell me which one you are right now. Depending on your answer, Tia. Depending on my answer, what? What'll you do, Subaru? He called his name, a nickname he got used to hearing. He couldn't believe that she'd call him that in an affectionate way. No, maybe she was calling him that with affection in her own way. Subaru was called by that nickname, and he blinked. Tia, what's up with that dumbfounded look? Could you not get charmed just because I'm cute, Subaru? I only care about wife. If my child is a girl, then I'll be only care about my wife and my daughter. Tia, well said. Also, I see there's quite a lot of people here. Tia's lips curled as they had an exchange of banter, and she slowly looked at all the people that had gathered for this battle. They were all very familiar faces to her. Surely Tia also knew that they were here to save her. Tia, Hal and the other males working hard late at night, huh? Apparently, grown men are idiots. Halable, you're gonna make me depressed by being that harsh. Adults gotta stay up late like idiots every now and then, you know. Tia, oh, so did anything come out of staying up late? Halable, actually, that's what we want to ask you. Tia, how'd it go? When Tia was asked that question, she held out her arms and gently opened and closed her palms. And then, when she went, me as if purring like a cat, she said, Tia, I got my light sphere back. I got me back. It's like the great spirit Zerstia has been completely revived here. Subaru, completely revived, but you're... Once Tia returns back to normal, she won't be able to control her bloodlust anymore. She certainly did say that. However, even after regaining the power that had been taken away from her, the Tia before them wasn't causing any havoc that they had been worrying about. Perhaps she was the same girl with a slight attitude from before. In that case, maybe the things Tia said would happen weren't going to happen after all. Tia, stop, Sue. You shouldn't get your hopes up. But Tia shook her head at Subaru's hopes with a stern look. When Subaru held his breath unintentionally, she sighed and said, Tia, immediately thinking of things that sound nice is something that males do. But it's not happening. I told you, didn't I? You guys are the reason why I got my light sphere back. I'm grateful for that. Subaru, then, Tia, yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful, so I want to kill. Subaru. Bloodlust intense enough to give one the chills filled the whole palace, went outside the premise, and then swallowed half of the town. The smell of death was felt so much by his skin that, for a moment, he had the illusion that his vision might have been covered by a black mist. After it sunk its claws into his soul, he understood that it came from Tia, who was standing still before him. Tia, this is who I am. This is who Zerstia is, the great spirit that only kills. Subaru, Tia, even so, Tia. You're still not letting it go? You're still saying this to me? Subaru was overwhelmed by bloodlust, had his throat caught by fear, and his heart went out of control. Even so, he wouldn't let go. As if irritated by it, Tia kicked dirt at him. If Tia acts, there will be total war. But would it even be total war? Wouldn't it just be a one-sided slaughter fest? That's how stronger the abnormal power felt to him. Tia. This weird water alcohol, was it? I remember now. I hated this stuff. Subaru. Tia. A long time ago I was forced to drink this, and my head was cut off when I was sleeping. My limbs were cut off too. This was thrown on my face. I was put on fire. After that, I always wanted to kill. Tia voiced her grudges to Subaru and the others, expressing just how cruelly she had been treated. revealing the reason why she hated the alcohol that became trump card for victory. However, she still had a smile on her face. There wasn't any anger on it. There wasn't any resentment either. There was only bloodlust with her smile that came from the heart. Tia, I want to kill everything. Whether I'm smiling, angry, crying, frustrated, in agony, or happy. Whether it be bitter or delicious. Whether it feel great or bad. Whether it be cold, hot, sweet, sour. Whether it be at night, in the morning, or in the afternoon. Whether it be a child, an adult, an old person, a baby, a man, a woman, a dog, a cat, or a wolf. Every feelings, every emotion, every situation, every time, every target, every being, everything was connected to bloodlust for Tia. Tia, I want to kill everything. That's the kind of creature I am. Subaru, then, what about us? Tia. Upon hearing Subaru's forced-out question, Tia directed her silent, murderous intent towards him. She just looked at him. An action that small had murderous intent, the embodiment of bloodlust, a being that has every conclusion lead to bloodlust. There were no lies on that billboard. Tia was trying to kill Subaru and the others. Even though she wasn't killing them, she was trying to. Even though she didn't want to kill them, she wanted to kill. Tia tried to say something. Words full of bloodlust come out. Klain and his employees took defensive postures. Hannibal put his hand in his pocket, and Subaru quietly clenched his fists. And then Tia... seven inside the clinic, there were intense energy and the spasms of a life. Doctor. Push down. Rem. Whoa. She tightly clenched her teeth and grasped the rail of the bed, propping her up with all her strength. The iron rails squeaked and clear fingerprints were left on it. Still, the pain didn't go away. She couldn't hide from it. The feeling of her insides being pushed out and the pain from a life struggling bash her consciousness again and again. Rem had never experienced pain like this in her whole life. Rem. Gooey. Actually, with the time length considered, this was more intense than any other pain she's ever experienced. Even if she concentrated on her forehead, she could not feel her horn coming out. Right now, the Oni Rem was completely dead, as if she had put all of her life force into the baby in her belly. Rem's horn has made her suffer a lot, and at the same time has been beneficial. Being an Oni has made Rem go through cruel, painful things. As she has confessed to Subaru, she wasn't able to be a good kid. To her parents, she was a failure of a daughter. To her sister, she was a bad little sister until the very end. It has also caused her to never think that she was given blessings and not benefits. Whenever was tormented by pain, suffering, or powerlessness, she would realize that she was an Oni, that she Oni blood, that she had power. Once she could no longer feel that for the first time, she realized that she was blessed. Blessed by being an Oni, by being born as her parents' child, by being her sister's little sister. She met Subaru, got married, had a kid, and in this moment when it was being born, realized it for the first time. Surely her parents too had felt Rem. Ooh-oh, breaks from the pain become shorter and shorter, and now the pain was swarming her nonstop. Every time it felt like she was going to lose consciousness, the dull pain shook her awake. It happened again and again. And Rem couldn't hear the midwife desperately cheering her on. She couldn't hear anything. Stranger, hey, do you realize where you are? Looking like that? Rem felt a strange, surprising presence, and she opened her eyes. In her field of vision blurred by tears, she did not see the midwife looking at Rem with an earnest expression. The midwife was sinking down next to the legs of the bed. Instead, the one right next to Rem looking into her face was Rem. Miss Tia, sorry to do this at a time like this, Rem. Also, I said we wouldn't see each other anymore, but I was wrong. This will really be the last time. In her open eyes, she saw Tia smile lonesomely. It was Tia's smile that Rem has seen many times, and yet dark thoughts seemed to be appearing and disappearing. Bloodlust, it was bloodlust. There was bloodlust in Tia's smile. It wasn't a fake smile, but there was bloodlust. Tia, this is the real me, so I can't be with you guys. When I see you struggling, I just want to kill. Rem, Tia's words had apologeticness, sincerity, and bloodlust. It made total sense. She understood what she was saying. Tia's true feelings and her nature were always in conflict. She couldn't live with her. That's the kind of existence she is. Rem, you got yourself back. Tia, yeah, I did. It's all thanks to Sue and Hal's hard work. I want to kill. Tia played with her hair in an embarrassed manner, and she voiced her murderous intent while blushing. Seeing her friend like that, Rem closed her eyes. A tear ran down her cheek. Rem, Miss Tia, I'm going to be a mom. Tia, yeah, I know. Rem, Miss Tia, I love Subaru. Tia, yeah, I know that too. Rem, Miss Tia, I love you too. Tia, Rem, so I can't live with you. Even though she loved her, she couldn't be with her. Her being unable to associate with others was an insurmountable maul. There was someone Rem loved and prioritized over Tia. Rem. It was after she told her feelings that Rem noticed how Tia looked for the first time. Tia, who had run over in a white dress, had someone in her arms. It was a senseless girl who wasn't breathing. Someone's dead body, a girl's dead body. She somehow knew who it was, and Tia. I will bring her with me. I killed her. My other half, the fake me, wanted to become one and loved me, so I killed her. Rem, Miss Tia, did you come to kill me? Tia, Tia going back to normal meant that Subaru made things work out somehow. Subaru wasn't here. Only Tia, who wanted to slaughter everything, came back. Logically thinking about it, this was a hopeless situation. It wouldn't be surprising if Rem was heartbroken and sobbed as she begged for her life. However, Rem didn't do that, and she knew there was no need to. The days she spent together with Tia wouldn't let her. Tia says an incomplete sentence once again. Tia's milky white hair shook, and with Rem in her clear eyes, she broke into a smile as she said, Tia, I love you guys, so I won't kill you. 8. It was dawn when he arrived at the clinic after running from the palace without any breaks. Subaru, how is Rem? Doctor, still in the middle of fighting. Why are you guys barging in with stupid looks on your faces? You're just going to get in the way. Don't enter the waiting room either. Go wait outside. The old magic user acted so cold towards Subaru, who was out of breath, and checked if his wife was all right. Although, that was understandable. Because of Subaru and Hallible's negligence, they had an unexpected intruder at the scene of the childbirth. Taboo things must have happened one after another in terms of professionalism for the one responsible for the clinic and watching the childbirth. Hallible, but man, more than half a day giving birth to a child is no easy task, said Hallible, sinking down onto the waiting room chair and giving a long sigh. Influenced by seeing him relaxing, Klain and the others who accompanied him also all sat down. The ones who intruded included almost all of the people who had been at the palace. There wasn't nearly enough room in the clinic. In the end, more than half of them left the building, falling over on the way out. Then they waited for morning and the baby's first cry. Of course, Subaru was waiting inside the waiting room, but he really couldn't settle down. He was just impatiently and restlessly walking around. Hallible, Sue, I understand how you feel, but shouldn't you calm down a little bit? Subaru, I get what you're saying. But sorry, even though it's pathetic, I just can't stay still. If I don't move, it feels like I'm suffocating. Hallible, makes sense. Well, I just wanted to say that. I did say I understand how you feel, but this isn't something I can't understand. Your worries are none of my business. It was just painful to watch, that's all. Although it sounded really irresponsible, he tried to get his mind off things even if it was just for a little while, and he appreciated the thought. However, Subaru used up all the relief he got from Hallible in mere seconds and once again started to wander around. Hallible gives a wry smile. Hallible, at times like these, men can only watch in silence. No matter how many times I go through it, it's still rough. Hallible bit on his unlit kaisru, said just that, and went silent this time. Deep inside, he agreed with his words. At times like these, men could only wait in silence. He looked up at the ceiling and continued to wish with his whole soul, like he was praying. An awfully stale wish. A wish anyone would make too if they were put in this situation. Subaru, please, God, Buddha, Christ, Jehovah, Mohammed, Angra Mainyu. It didn't matter if it was a good god or if it was an evil god. Even call a devil's name if you feel inclined to do so. Subaru called the names of every supernatural existence he knew of and prayed. Subaru, Tia, please. And lastly, he prayed with a name that was neither a god's name nor a great spirit's name, but his friend's. I pray, Subaru, That both the mother and the child are all right. It was right after he gave a prayer when there was a disruptive change in the atmosphere. Inside the clinic, a voice, the first cry of a bawling, rang out, going through the clinic room door. Subaru impulsively lifted his face, and Hannibal also rose from his chair. Everyone who had been sleeping jumped to their feet one by one, and they waited eagerly for the clinic room door to open. Hannibal, have you decided on a name? Hannibal asked that to Subaru, who was standing still and raising and lowering his head. After that, Subaru pulled himself together and said, Subaru, why, yeah, I got one. I have one. If it's a girl, Spica. The Subaru in Natsuki Subaru is a name of a star. It's what his parents named him as they prayed. Imitating them, he'd name the child after a star while praying that he'd become a father who'd live up to his parents. The door to the clinic room slowly opens. Beyond it, he saw Rem holding the baby, Subaru. If it's a boy, epilogue, anniversary 1 Rem. Rigel, when the child had its name called by a gentle voice, it slowly stood up. It was a child with light blue hair and eyes that had the same color as its hair. It was turning 6 years old and was still at the peak of its adorableness, but the sharpness of its eyes didn't make the future look too bright. Natsuki Rigel, that was the name of this child, a fitting leading character for the ending of this story. Rem, Rigel, where are you? It's time to go to Temple Elementary. Rigel, Mom, I'm right here. I'm already ready. When he responded to the voice that came from inside the house, a woman with long blue hair appeared all of a sudden. The lovely, beautiful woman suddenly smiled as she stared at Rigel, who was standing in the garden. Rem, oh, you got ready quickly today. Good boy. Rigel, unlike Dad, I don't want to trouble you. Rem, HMPH, don't say that, Rigel. You shouldn't badmouth your dad. Besides, I'm into taking care of your dad, so I don't mind. Ha, it makes me so happy. I think the second one is coming now. Rigel, could you not? That's not funny. Listening to Rigel's voice crack, the woman, Rem, the mother, giggled. She had a baby belly, and inside of it there was Rigel's little brother/little sister in the making. Although he was honestly anxious about having a sibling being born, Rigel had high hopes. Surely it'll be a cute little sister. No doubt about it. I vote for a little sister. Rem, so even if it ends up being a little brother, don't bully him and be his friend, okay? Rigel, well, that won't be a problem if you do your best to give birth to a little sister. Rem, oh my, you really do seem to resemble someone. Dealing with Rigel's sass, Rem put her to her forehead as if to say that this was unfortunate. It's true that in the neighborhood Rigel was known to have a smart mouth. He was so quick-witted that you wouldn't believe he was a 6-year-old, and it was acknowledged by the kids in the neighborhood. However, Rigel knew that some other people had a big influence on this situation. He knew things were like this mainly because of his father and his workplace. Rem, it's great that I got my maternity and parental leaves approved as suggested by your dad, but now that I don't have work, I'm very bored. Rigel, what are you saying with that baby bell of yours? You should just do housework. Although Rem sighed with boredom, Rigel had nothing but respect for his mother's boldness. This may not be her first childbirth, but how could a pregnant woman be this calm her second time? Rigel wanted to go around the whole town bragging about it, but his father was already doing that, so he held back. Rem, it was quite rough when I had you. This isn't so bad in comparison. Rigel, was it really that rough? Rem, yep, it sure was. It was a breech delivery and I almost died. Rigel, it was that rough. Rem, it was rough. Your dad and Uncle Hannibal almost died too. Rigel, they were going to die. Rem, they weren't the only ones. Had it taken a little longer, the whole town of Bonin might have gotten annihilated. Rigel, just how difficult was my birth? Rigel was told that his own birth put the town in danger, and it surprised him. I can't possibly imagine this happening, but is it going to be a difficult birth like that when my sister is born? Rigel, will I stay alive and meet my sister? In his mind, he promises to use the substitution Hannibal taught him on his father to sacrifice him if push comes to shove. In any case, while they were having that conversation, the bell tower rang. Rigel, ah, dang it, I'm actually going to be late. Rem, that's not good. Here, bring this bento. Also, Dad forgot to bring his bento, so give this to him, please. Rigel, all right. Rigel takes the 2 packages and knits his brows at the difference between the two. One was kid-sized. He could see that. That one's his. But what was up with how grand the other one was? Rem, they're the same. Rigel, are they now? Rem, I packed the same amount of love in each. For you to worry about such a thing, Rigel, you're still such a baby, huh? Your sister's going to be disappointed with you. Rigel, why am I always at fault? Rigel pouted at what Rem said, and after that he put the 2 packages into his bag. Then he waved at his mother, started to leave the house, and Rem. Rigel. Upon hearing his mom's voice, he stopped and turned around. His mom gently waved while smiling and said, Rem, take care. Rigel, I'm off. After having that exchange, Natsuki Rigel started running to Temple Elementary. To Stranger, you sure are energetic again today, Rigel. Stranger, Rai, good morning. Stranger, good morning, Rigel. Rigel, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Running towards downtown, Rigel was spoken to from every direction. To Rigel, this was the town he was born and raised in, the environment he was familiar with. But if he were to say that this was something totally natural, his classmates at Temple Elementary School would be surprised, so apparently he was just a little strange. Rigel. Mom and Dad seemed to have done a lot of things. He'd overheard the adults conversate as if they were talking about an amusing story. His mom and dad may have been involved in a serious event that shook Bonin town. Rigel honestly thought that it was fake. Would his mother, someone who acts reserved other than with his dad, really get involved in a serious event like that? As for his dad, it would not be surprising if an uproar was centered around him. While having such thoughts, Rigel, stranger, oh, Rigel, come here. He hears a voice that didn't sound like it was greeting him. Rigel stops upon hearing that familiar tone of voice and turns around. Then right behind him there was not a black wall, but a person in a black kimono. Rigel, Uncle Halabel. Halabel, oh, long time no see, Rigel. Have you been well? Have you been skipping your training? Rigel, no, I haven't. In fact, I want to go on to the next training already. How about you, Uncle? Why have you been gone from town for so long? Rigel had his hair tousled by him and broke into a broad smile from the rough way he handled his hair. Halibel was his parents' friend, and to Rigel he was like an uncle. Though he may not look like it, he works as a shinobi and jokes that he's always finding those who bring the seeds of trouble into Kararagi city-state, purging them behind the scenes, assassinating. Still, he really was like a shinobi, and he was secretly giving training. Halibel, you're pretty good at this. So good that you should even follow my footsteps if Rem lets you. Rigel. Like following your footsteps to being an eternal playboy. No way. I'm going to support Mom and my sister and get a job that I can be proud of as a family head. Halibel. I feel like I've heard this before, and what about your dad? Rigel. Dad's a man. He's old enough to wipe his own butt. He'll be fine. Halibel. Dehahaha, what the hell, Sue has no respect going for him. After shrugging his shoulders, Halibel bursted into laughter while covering his face. Then once Halibel's momentary laughter settled down, he said, Halibel, anyways, I'm gonna go see Rem. I'm on break for a while, so I'd like to be there to see your little brother/little sister being born if possible. Rigel, it's a little sister. Halibel, Rigel, it's going to be a little sister. Halibel, why, yeah, right. Overwhelmed by an alarming sense of intimidation, Halibel nodded dubiously in response to Rigel's comment. And then he put his kaisru to his mouth and lit it as he gave out smoke. Halibel, you're going to Temple Elementary now, right? Take care. When you get back, I'll train you. Rigel, it's a promise. Lie and I'll make you swallow 1,000 needles. Halibel, oh, how scary. A Sioux type of phrase, I'm so scared. Rigel, you'll be swallowing them from the bottom. Halibel, does that kind of stuff even happen? Halibel shrieked and laughed loudly upon hearing Rigel's reminder, and he left as he waved goodbye. He was ecstatic to have met him again unexpectedly, but now he had very little time left. Was he going to have enough time to give his dad his bento? He wouldn't care if not giving it would just mean that his dad would suffer, but he didn't want to make his mom sad. It was a dilemma. So, as a solution, Rigel, be sneaky about it. Rigel concentrated on his forehead, jumped very high, and went over the streets. 3 jumping high and bathing in the wind and the sky felt good. Inside the horn grown on his forehead, mana gathered from the atmosphere, filling his body with strength. In this state, Rigel felt like he was wrapped in a sense of almightiness, and that he could do anything. However, since his mom would make a lonely look whenever he grew his horn, he tried to avoid doing this as much as possible. Of course, using it in an emergency like this was different, though. Rem, I'm sorry that you could only grow one horn. His mom had said that once when she was patting Rigel's head while he was pretending to be asleep. Rigel couldn't understand why she was apologizing for that. Judging from the way she had said it, it seemed having one horn wasn't enough, but wouldn't 5 or 6 of them look lame? He thought there was a nice balance with having one horn in the middle of his forehead, and that it looked cool. Rigel, well, it's not like I can look cool anyway with how much my face looks like Dad's. Rigel steps on the roof tiles, being careful not to break them, and hops over the town. His dad's workplace is called the Bonin Culture Promotion Group, which was in the east side of town, and it seems they plan all sorts of festival and events, and it is up to them to pump life into the town, or something like that. Apparently, it used to be a culture school that his dad had worked at, but he didn't know any details about it. Anyways, his dad's workplace was annoying all year round, and it was tiring to explain to his friends that it was a job that spreaded the ritual where you hit anise with beans, whenever they asked him about it. That being said, it was true that he was supporting the household with his earnings. Thinking that this was the time as a son to thank his efforts for the family, he focused on bringing the bento and stranger. Hey, you there. Rigel. Ooh, he was called out to while jumping in the air, and it freaked him out. Rigel looks right beside him, sees that someone is there, and was taken aback. It was a very beautiful person. Milky white hair, a pure white dress, eyes attractive enough to leave you unable to speak. Stranger. Wow, I can already guess whose kid is this. Isn't that something? Rigel. W.H. Ujia? Rigel, surprised by the beautiful face getting near him and smiling broadly, lost his balance in the air. He lost control, and at this rate was going to hit the ground. Stranger, careful. You should stop jumping around if you're incapable. Rigel. He was grabbed by the neck and was forced to stop. Then the person swooped down at once while holding on to Rigel. They silently landed at an empty street. Rigel. You, After landing, the woman and Rigel faced each other while she held him up. Rigel was stared at by a beautiful person he'd never seen before that smelled nice, and it made him nervous. Seeing Rigel act like that, the woman sighed contentedly and said, Stranger, I really enjoyed that. Yep, that's a face that says you want to kill. Rigel, what's that supposed to mean? Stranger, oh, just like Sue. I guess that should be expected, given that your face looks that similar to his. The woman laughed foolishly and let go of Rigel, freeing him. While timidly looking at the woman, Rigel had no idea how to respond and had a question mark above his head. Since she talked about his face, she's most likely someone Dad knows. A lot of the people Dad knows are weirdos, but this woman in front of me is pretty fine woman. A beauty. No, but still stranger. Hey, don't get mesmerized just because I'm cute. Rigel. No matter how much of a beauty you are, I have my little sister, so. Stranger. Oh, okay then. So you've got a girl in mind. Wait, little sister. Won't karma get you for that? Karma, wonder what that means. I don't understand complicated things. I'm just a kid after all. Stranger. Karma is when you have to live your life in a way that can never be changed. You'll understand soon enough. Anyways, Rigel, anyways, stranger. You're Rigel, aren't you? Sue and Rem's kid. Right, Rigel. If by Sue you mean Natsuki Subaru, then yes. The woman mentioned Rigel's mom and dad's names, and he nodded while being careful of her. The woman seemed very friendly. He also had a hunch that there was something else about her that was off-putting, but he ignored it for now. It was probably one of those hunches that wouldn't be worth worrying about after Rigel interacted with her. Stranger, I'm surprised. You're an interesting one. Rigel, isn't that your karma? I don't really get it, though, stranger. Aha, you got me. Well done. You're the hero that slayed a monster. The woman smiled and exaggerated that he had slayed a monster. If this girl was a monster, then the world must be a pretty peaceful place. Stranger, and so I offer this as a reward for the hero that has slain the monster. Rigel, what's this? What the woman held out to him was something like a bracelet made with white thread. The woman made a devious look and went, "Haha," in response to Rigel's reaction of tilting his head. "Stranger, this is a small gift. I actually said I was going to give you my light sphere, but that's hard to do. So I'm giving you a special white, not black, binding made by myself." "Rigel, what do you mean, stranger? If something ever happens, I'll come rushing over to save you. That's what the tool is for. It's an amazing treasure. What do you think?" "Come rushing over," she says, but what can this slender girl even do if she does come? Those were Rigel's thoughts, forgetting about how he had been saved from jumping in Oni form. There was also the gift, but Rigel. Mom said not to accept things from strangers, so, stranger. "Huh? Why, you're turning down my gift. I'll kill you, you know, Rigel. That's a threat." The woman starts tearing up slightly, says something dangerous, and Rigel screeched at her. This girl was whack. She looked way older than him, but was talking like one of his classmates. Or maybe something closer would be a little sister. It was like he was talking to a little sister. Plus, he knew that she had no ill intentions. Looking at her eyes, he could tell. She stared at Rigel so seriously that it felt uncomfortable, and she was putting words together. "Stranger, but I love you. I want to kill you, though." "Rigel, I have a little sister, so, stranger. You already said that earlier. Besides, she shouldn't even be born yet." She says that to Rigel, and rejected her for almost mesmerizing him for a bit. The woman stamped her feet and tore her hair out, maybe because she was irritated by that, and said, "Stranger. Fine, fine, fine. If you insist, then fine. I was actually going to leave, but not anymore. I'm going to talk about this with Sue." Rigel, "With Dad, I don't mind, but Dad's quite a pain in the butt." Stranger, "I know. So is your mom. Let's go, Rigel." The woman said just that, and then started to walk. However, she was going in the wrong direction to get to his dad's workplace. "Rigel, it's this way." "Stranger, I knew that. Aren't you being kind of bratty? Just how involved do you think I was with your birth? The town almost got destroyed, you know." Rigel, "Seriously, what the heck happened on the day I was born?" When Rigel felt like this was a story that he had just heard about from his mother, he loudly threw a question. After hearing that, the woman put her finger to her lips and said, "Stranger, it'd take a long time to tell you the story, longer than the time it'll take to get to your dad." Rigel, "Then just come to our home. I'm sure Mom would welcome you, stranger." When Rigel put his hands behind his head and told the woman that, her eyes widened. After that, she chuckled and said, "Stranger, oh, of course she would. I bought that house with the goodbye presents that I earned after all." Rigel, "What are you to my family? You haven't even told me your name." "Tia. My name, oh, I'm Tia. I'm HM." The girl that seemed to be deeply involved with a bunch of stuff in the Natsuki family, Tia was messing with Rigel. However, he didn't mind it, and he was charmed by Tia's smile as she looked back. Tia, with her broad smile, cheerfully said, "Tia, I'm like a part of your family." She finally said those words, and they both slowly moved towards his dad's workplace, standing side by side. Before she knew it, the girl started humming in a good mood, and it sounded like something Rigel had heard before. Rigel. It was a lullaby his mom had put together long ago, before he was even born. She had said that the name of the song was Tia. So, well, I guess I'll accept the fact that she said she's family. A light blue sky, a town that looked ordinary in every way, the scenery of a family's ordinary life. That common, irreplaceable happiness definitely existed in one corner of the world. There were things that were lost, things that were abandoned, places that were ran away from, memories that couldn't be forgotten even if they tried. Despite having all these feelings, they would still live in this world that went on. And that was also an ending for one of the loves of a lost boy that wandered into another world.